of 2020. Hard to believe. And so calling this meeting to order. And we'll start as usual with something other, since I've been board member, usually something other than the Pledge of Allegiance. And I just want to briefly mention that today is International Human Rights Day. So I've chosen the lyrics, as I've done, I think, a number of times in the past, the lyrics of the song, This Land Is Your Land. And this tune, for those of you that hopefully remember, was written by Woody Guthrie, probably the premier singer-songwriter of the first half of the 20th century. And this particular tune, even though we're just going to be doing the first stanza, the first lyrics of it, it basically addresses the issue of social and economic equality in our society, but certainly all over the planet as well. So if Osana, if you could put those lyrics up on the screen, please.
Yes. Do you see it?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Okay, I'm finally joined. I just managed to get pulled across.
Sorry about that, Cindy. I didn't even notice you weren't here. My apologies. Okay, thank you, Osana.
There it is. I see it.
All right. So if those of you would just repeat after me, this land is your land.
Your land.
And this land is my land.
My land.
That is my land.
From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest
Forest.
to the
To
Gulf
the
Stream
waters.
water. This land
was made for you and me.
Me.
All right. Thank you. All right, we have a quorum and then some. And we will now move forward to the election of officers. And Osuna, why don't I just hand this off to you or to John with regard to accepting the certification, and you will be administering the oath of office to the three of us, correct?
All right. Can I call on?
I'll take it first, Osana. For agenda item 1D1, accepting the certification by San Luis Obispo County Clerk Recorder of 3 November 2020 election results. Staff recommends that the Board of Directors accept the certification by the SLO County Clerk Recorder for the November 3rd election results and proceed with oath of office for the new directors.
Thank you, John.
I move we accept him.
I'll second.
Do we actually need to take a vote on this?
No.
Okay.
Yes, you do.
Are we on the board at this point? The new people?
Certify the election results.
Okay, so
No. So it would appear,
So,
it would appear actually that I guess both David and Amanda need to vote on this because we haven't administered the oath of office yet, correct?
that's what I was asking, yes.
Right. So Osuna, if you wouldn't mind, Karen.
I think Karen can't make the motion yet.
That's right. That's
Sorry
right.
about that.
I would make the motion.
And I will second.
Cool.
Okay,
Here we
so
are.
Director Rice, you made the motion, and Vice President Stidel, you seconded?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And so if I could get a roll call, then Director Rice?
With a hearty, it's all yours now. Yes.
Right. Vice President Stidel?
Yes.
Director Howell?
Yes.
And let's see, President Farmer?
Yes.
And do I include Director Dean?
No, not yet, because we haven't
Not yet.
administered the
No,
oath of
not yet.
office. That's what's
Okay.
next.
All right. So then, and Director Howell, I got you. Farmer Cindy Rice. Okay.
What about Director Pearson?
Which is right.
Oh, yes. Director Pearson, you are muted. Let me unmute you.
Hi.
Yeah, that was an aye. Okay.
Sorry about that, David.
And what is your motion, Director Pearson?
He said aye.
Aye, okay,
It was just quiet.
okay. Thank you very much. And now we can do the oath of office if we're moving on, correct? All right, and so I would like to ask Karen Dean, if you would repeat after me. Hands up. I, Karen Dean,
I, Karen Dean,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will
and that I will
well and faithfully
well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And now if Tom Gray, if you would please. Thank you. I, Tom Gray,
I, Tom Gray,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the Constitution
and allegiance to the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose
without any mental reservation or purpose
of evasion,
of evasion, yes,
and that I will
and that I will
well and faithfully
well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And also now with Harry to get your sworn in. Raise your hand. Thank you. I, Harry Farmer,
I, Harry Farmer,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will
and that I will
well and faithfully
will and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties of which I am about to enter.
Thank you.
Amen.
You're welcome. Amen.
Thank you. Okay,
All right.
all right.
We are now moving on to election of officers. And
Yes.
first, yes, did you want to say something, Osuna?
Does Amanda would have to go as a panelist at this point?
Oh, wait, don't we have to, wait a minute.
Yes, I think that would be correct. Both her and David.
Okay.
Yep, we will bring Amanda back for acknowledgements section.
You can bring them back as attendees, but Amanda will, she'll be speaking shortly once we do acknowledgements or when we do acknowledgements.
Okay. Give me a second here.
No problem.
Let's see. Trying to take her off of, I don't, yes, please.
Click on the person's
Yes.
name.
Oh, Lord. What's she doing in? Well, we'll see what. Ah, there we are. Okay, who's C?
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Osuna. So now we are moving on to election of officers. And I could, before I hand this off to Mr. Weigold, I want some clarification, if you don't mind, Tim, with regard to the recommendations. And there's like 12 items listed here. But with regard to items 4 and 10, a motion and a second. I don't believe we need a motion and a second. We just have nominations. Is that correct?
President Farmer, this could be handled in any way you choose. Yes. Actually, this procedure that's here, I think we only used it last year, but you can skip the motion and the second.
All right. Thank you so much. So from this, since this is from you, General Manager Weigel, let me hand this off to you for a moment for introduction, and then I'll proceed with the election of officers if you wish to do that.
Thank you, President Farmer. So this next section is the election of president and vice president of the board. The president will open the nominations for the office. We'll hear my understanding, and President Farmer, if I'm incorrect, please correct me. You'll open the floor for nominations, and then close nominations, and then have discussion on those nominations, including public comment.
So let me, thank you. So let me ask Mr. Carmel, just once again for clarification. Should we do the nominations first, Tim, or should we pursue to public comment first? Which would you advise?
Absolutely, it's your discretion again, but I think I'd hold public comment now.
Yeah.
Okay. That would have been my thought, but I just wanted clarification. So, you know, we have 31 attendees. We have 2 people that have raised their hand. First, let me ask Osuna. Osuna, do you have any written comments on this particular item?
Yes, I do.
Why don't you go ahead and read those first, and then we'll go to public comment from those.
President Farmer, excuse me.
Sure.
I'm wondering, considering the number of attendees there are, and considering a number of them may have come because of the election of officers,
Okay.
would it be worth considering a time of something less than 3 minutes per person, as that could definitely take quite a bit of time for our agenda timeline, and we have quite a bit to get through today. And if you choose to do that, then we may want to take the written afterwards, as they would not have been aware of the 1 minute limitation or 2 minute limitation that is established. And there's no knowing how long those might be.
All right. Well, those are all very logical observations. Yes, Director Howell.
May I suggest in that regard that we ask the public to ask those to raise their hands who plan on speaking, because it may not be that everyone sitting out there actually intends to speak. So a show of hands on that might be useful to us. What would you say?
Well, so far 5 people have raised their hand. 6. So I think while those folks are raising their hands, let's go ahead.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
We have 7 people that have raised their hand. So as Vice President Steidel has suggested, why don't we go ahead and take public comment from those in attendance, and please make an effort to limit your comments to perhaps 1 minute, and we'll go from there, if that's possible. Thank you. So go ahead, Osuna, if you don't mind, and call on those attendees with their hands up.
Sure thing. Christine Heinrichs, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Harry Farmer has served well as president of the board for the past year. He should continue his leadership in 2021. Harry has shown himself to be a strong advocate for Cambria. The public understands that. He was reelected with more votes than any candidate has ever gotten in Cambria, with more than 90% of registered voters voting. Mandates don't get any clearer than that. He is doing what the public wants and should continue doing it. Harry has been a leader in finances. He informs the public of what and how much the board is paying. That's responsibility. He's been deeply involved with the coastal development permit for the emergency water supply project. That star-crossed application now sits at the county, needing more information and support from the district to move forward. Harry has been involved. He knows the project, the application process, and the people involved. His 4 years of work have paid off. Elect him president so that he can continue leading the district on this, the single most important and most expensive project before the district. Harry stays in touch with his constituents. He has held monthly meetings since he was elected to hear from the public. His openness and availability keep him in touch with the will of the people. Harry is the best person to lead the board in 2021. Please elect him president.
All right. Could you call on the next attendee? Thank you, Ms. Heinrichs. Could you call on the next attendee, please?
Yes, Michael Lyons, go ahead. And unmute yourself.
Okay, I think I've done it now. So very sorry for the delay. I strongly support and favor the regular succession plan of moving the vice president to the president's chair on a regular basis. I would not like to see the president serve a succession number of terms, because you end up with a little bit of a monopoly there. Even though I do admit that President Farmer, in my observation and sometimes participation in these meetings, has exhibited fairness and impartiality to the board, the staff, and the public, and I commend him for that. But I think it's time to move on to someone else who could do an equal job, because after all, they only have 1 vote apiece, and the main job of the president is to lead the meetings, and I think Vice President Steidel could lead the meetings quite well. Thank you very much.
All right, Osuna, the next person with their hand up, please.
Yes, Laura and Crosby.
Lauren Crosby, please
Unmute
unmute yourselves.
yourself.
Yes, thank you. We were just having a debate about who should go first. Good afternoon, President Farmer and members of the board. Congratulations to the newly elected directors. We're all looking forward to a new year of diligent effort by the board and staff to guide the district over the serious financial, technical, and legal hurdles facing it this year. Each of you is well qualified to serve as president or vice president of this board. And we have seen all of you in action in various roles in the community, and it's not easy to recommend one over the other for leadership roles. This afternoon, I would like to single out President Farmer for your consideration. Harry's strong support in the recent election shows that the community is confident in his leadership ability and comfortable with his understanding of the community's priorities. Harry never stops communicating directly and openly with everyone in town who has a question, comment, or suggestion. His monthly table talk breakfasts and Zoom sessions are a model of open communication with members of our community. Harry is a strong and independent thinker who carefully considers all sides of the difficult problems facing the district. He is known for his focus on common sense restraint on district costs and expenditures. He is a tireless cheerleader for the natural beauty of our community and the special character and spirit of this place. I know you each have your own ideas about who to support for the board leadership roles. I hope you will consider Harry's special leadership and communication skills and strong support throughout the community. Electing Harry to a second term as board president will go a long way toward improving public confidence that the district's actions are in the best interest of the whole community. Thank you. And then Laura has it.
Okay, this time it's Laura, and we wrote these separately. Anyhow, good afternoon, board and staff. Mine's a little shorter. It says, we the people can see the honesty and the sincerity that Harry Farmer lives by. In the most recent election, he has had the greatest community support ever, with over 2,500 votes, and that's pretty impressive in a village with about 4,000 registered voters. I would like to see Mr. Farmer begin his new 4-year second term in the position as president to fill the majority of the community's expectations. Honesty, sincerity, caring about the environment and the village as a whole is a good thing. With a little help from his friends, the direction Harry has taken us would continue. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I just want to make a comment. I probably, I said earlier, just take 1 minute, but obviously folks have prepared comments of over 1 minute, but no one has gone over 2 minutes. So let's just put it at 2 minutes then. And Osuna, if you would call on the next member of the public, please.
Yes, Tina Dickinson, please, if you would like to talk. Go ahead and unmute.
I think asking Tina if she'd like to talk is kind of, well, never mind. Go right ahead, Tina.
Actually, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Tina.
Okay, I actually need to exit this for a moment. Nature is calling, and so maybe I could speak after the written comments because I need to leave the meeting for a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Lundgren. Go ahead. Landgren, Christine, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Mark Landgreen, and she's operating the unmute, which worked. I suggest we follow the tradition, which would promote the current vice president up to president. It would lead to more variety, creativity, and diversity. So I believe that's the way we should go and stay with tradition. Therefore, Cindy Steidel would move up to president. She's very well qualified to do that.
And Christine agrees.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Amanda Rice.
Amanda, it's your turn to speak.
Oh, I think that was maybe a mistake. Claudia Harmon.
Yeah, hello, everyone. I just want to add my comment about this. I know it's not usual to have a second term for president, but having known Harry for a long, long time and having worked with him, caring for the trippers for us for Beautify Cambria. This is my personal opinion, not Beautify that, Beautify Cambria, but I've had this relationship with him. I think the thing that the CCSD probably needs more than anything, now we're in a situation of transition. We have a problem is even worse with COVID. I think we need a leader who has a reputation for having been kind and generous and of his time and his work. Many, many times he has not been able to go out and use a usual schedule for watering the trippers because he's busy with CCSD research. And I don't know of anyone who has a table talk. I think that this is the kind of leadership that we need to go forward during these trying times. So that reason more than anything, I think we need to have that. And I said it over and over again, we have to be more transparent. You have to have an image that will generate the kind of audience that will feel free to speak at these meetings and so we can make the best decisions about all of the issues that we have ahead of us. So yes, I do believe that Harry would make the best president to go forward for 4 more years. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I think Amanda is ready to speak now.
Okay, go ahead, Amanda.
Thank you. I support continuing the tradition in spite of the fact that I did serve 2 years in a row as president. I do support the change back to the tradition of the president is first the vice president, and it moves along that way with 5 people on the board. If the same person is president twice, it could possibly eliminate somebody else's opportunity to be president during their term. I think that sticking to the line of tradition and selecting Cindy Stidel to be president next year is a good move. I think it's an excellent time to give some extra time to Director Farmer to do the kind of outreach that the district and the community is asking for. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mel McCulloch. Go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Mel McCulloch, and to keep this short, I agree with Mike Ryan and Amanda that I would like to see the board follow the traditions of succession as we have most of the time in the past. And I would like to see Cindy become the 2021 president and also compliment Harry on the great job that he has done for this community. We talk quite often, and I'm a total supporter of his, but I think Cindy's time has come. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michael Calderwood, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm chuckling at the frequent use of the word tradition as it's been untraditional, at least since I've been in town in this succession discussion. But given that we've got 5 very capable people on this board now, Harry has shown great leadership in his term as president and also as director. But I think it's important that we remember that when we use the term the community, that the community is a little bit broader and it extends beyond those who are most vocal at meetings like this. And I think that the succession of vice president to president and then moving on up to the vice president role makes perfect sense to me because it gives a good broad representation of the incredible skills, talent, focus, and dedication of everybody on this board. And I think Cindy and Don have earned the right to move on up. So that's my thought on this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have some written comments. Would you like that?
Sure, go right ahead.
for this? Okay. All right. Just to let you know, there is 10 of them, and I'll speak very quickly. From Lauren Younger, the intent of the emergency water supply is to subsidize our low water levels when necessary, not promote growth. The changes to a sustainable system violate that original intent and violate the Clean Water Act, not to mention the rights of all earthly natural things to have clean, non-toxic water to drink, to fund our streams, and seep out the ocean without sickening the kelp fields and all that live by Cambria's shores. I encourage the board to keep Harry Farmer as your president. I also want you to submit the coastal development permit in the name of the EWS, not a sustainable growth enabling system. Lauren Younger. Gail S. To the board, Harry Farmer has done a fantastic job his first term as president. The results of our last election clearly show that Cambrians trust Harry and believe in his ability to lead the board. Sincerely, Gail Stevens. Marvin Josephson, to the board. Harry Farmer received the most votes in the past election for the CCSD and therefore should rightfully be elected to be the CSD board president. In the same vein, he should also have a seat on the all-important water committee. Please vote for him for these positions. Thank you, Marvin Josephson. Eddie Pearson. Harry Farmer. It has been an honor to have Harry Farmer representing us in the CSD as president. He has served as CSD board president and done a great job for our community. His heart and soul care about Cambria. We request that Harry continue as president for a second term to help Cambria resolve serious issues. We also request that Harry serve on the water committee that decides the fate of the EWS. Harry is a treasure for our community. Hetty Pearson. Herbert Stroh. Board, I am unable to attend the webinar board meeting on the 10th. However, I wanted to express my support, Harry Farmer, and urge you to re-elect him as board president. I also support Harry be appointed to serve on the water committee that determines the future of the EWS SWS. Water issues are of critical importance to all Cambrians, and I believe Harry is the right person to lead our community in finding long-term solutions. Thanks, Herb Stroh. Kelly Cannon, I strongly support Harry Farmer or the position of board president, I guess they meant to say on, as well as being appointed to the water committee that decides the fate of the EWS. I have been a Cambria resident for 36 years. We voted for an emergency water supply, not a supply to increase growth and cost us more to bring more water usage to town. The recent phenomenon of migration to Cambria from the metropolitan areas also includes many previously vacant second homes becoming primary residences. We do not need to build more units, thus taxing our water supply as well. Kelly Cannon. Constance Faber. Dear board members, we are unable to attend the meeting scheduled for December 10th and so wish to use this email to formally add our support for Harry Farmer to serve a second term as president. We believe his decisive re-election is a clear signal that he carries a mandate from a significant portion of this community. We trust that he will continue to represent us effectively and with the integrity he has demonstrated. As well, we urge that he also serves on the water committee as, again, we are confident that he can best represent our views, particularly as regards the EWS. Thank you, Constance Faber, Zdaravko Barov, Cambria residents. Another one, I am submitting the information below to the CCSD board on Thursday, December 10th. Good afternoon, directors. First, I wish to thank David Pearson for raising the subject of fire hydrants at our last meeting, and I am looking forward to raise detailed analysis of where we currently stand. On another positive note, today I saw a CCSD crew up on Hartford in Pine Knoll servicing a hydrant. However, I would like some clarity on the number of hydrants that Ray expects to service each month. I have reviewed the tape from the last meeting and could not decipher the number he gave. Was it 6 or 60? I think This did not, yes. This is not about the election, so I'm gonna put it aside. From James Townsend to the Cambria Board of Directors for this agenda. Dear President Farmer and members of the board, I am writing to support the re-election of Director Harry Farmer to serve another term as board president. The recent election clearly showed that the public supports both Director Farmer's positions on the major issues confronting our community and his leadership ability. While I understand that it's sometimes customary for the board presidency to rotate, there have been times in the past when that has not happened. Given the important and timely issues facing the district, the recent election results, and Director Farmer's demonstrated fairness, even tempered management of board meetings over the past year, and the public's support for his positions, he should serve another term as president. Thank you for your consideration. Respectfully, Jim Townsend. And Scott Anderson. To be read at the meeting in support of Harry Farmer serving a second term as president. 1 year ago, I stood before the board and supported Harry's first term as president. I had come to know Harry while walking my dogs on Lodge Hill and during his monthly in-person table talks. I found Harry then and now to be an uncommonly honest and forthright individual with a deep respect and reverence for the community and the environment in which it lives. I don't always agree with Harry's point of view, nor he with mine, but in the end, he listens and acknowledges the differences. Cambria is currently facing water-related challenges compounded by legal and financial woes brought on my previous board's attempts to secure our water supply. Harry advocates a conservative approach that cares for the needs of Cambria's current residents and the environment. That's the approach I believe makes sense, and apparently many others do as well because he received the highest number of votes in the recent board elections. For that reason, and to capitalize on the experience he's gained doing the job this past year, I urge support for Harry Farmer to serve another term as CCSD board president. And Donald Archer comments on the election of officers. Hello, I want to voice my support for Harry Farmer continuing as president of the board this next year. I believe that under his leadership, the board will better serve the needs and interests of the entire community rather than just the interests of a vocal minority. I have known Harry personally for almost 30 years. He is an individual of amazing integrity and a concern for the well-being of our unique community and all of its resources. While I may not always agree with his positions, I know that he holds them from a concern for maintaining the unique spirit that brought us all to this area. And I know that he will listen and give my views consideration, even if they differ from his. I have seen the care, detail, and time with which Harry has personally reviewed the finances of the district and the projects that the district has committed itself to. I also have seen Harry grow in his position of leadership this past year and how he has learned from many mistakes or problems he may have encountered. He presents a continuity from the past board needed for the district to run as smoothly and efficiently as possible. He has shown through his initiation and regular participation in his Wednesday table talks, his ability and his interest in learning the needs and wishes of Cambrians directly from them. I would hope that the board will give Harry the opportunity to continue the work, the vision, and the direction he has already begun as the president of the board. Thank all of you for your attention and consideration to this matter. I appreciate your commitment to this wonderful community. And that is it with the comments. And there's Clive. There's two others.
Go ahead and call on the two attendees, and perhaps Ms. Dickinson will return as well.
Okay. Go ahead, Clive Metric.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello. Cindy, I strongly support Cindy for president here. She's been in Cambria for 23 years. She has private sector experience, and that's something Harry doesn't have. She's experience that's in things that are very important to the success of the CCSD, including finance and project management. She's been active in the community. She's been in the build-out reduction committee, the NCAC. She's done yeoman's work here on the board. And I can't think of any reason why we would object to following the tradition that we have had of having the vice president step into the president's spot when we have such a qualified individual in the vice president's spot. And I think, you know, there's a diversity issue here as well. We've had white males and white males for the last couple of times. So Cindy, you know, really has my vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ted Key, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Hi, I just want to voice my support for Harry. You know, many of the other commenters have already talked about Harry's eminent qualifications and so on. I just look at it kind of pragmatically. You know, when I look at where the vote was when Harry was elected 4 years ago, you know, Harry came on with, you know, only a few dozen votes got him on the board. And this time now he has obtained record-setting amount of votes. So it seems like the people of Cambria really like Harry and they like his leadership. And I just think, you know, on that basis right there, on the vote of confidence that the people of Cambria have given to Harry, I think he deserves another year as president. He's been doing a great job, and it's not been easy for him, but he's you know, in terms of working, you know, with the majority versus minority issues, but I think that Harry has done an excellent job, and I think Harry is sensitive to the needs of the people of Cambria, and apparently the people of Cambria think the same. So that's all I have to say. I'm fully in support of Harry for president. So thank you.
Thank you. And that is it for now.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Osuna. Seeing that we have no further comments, let me go ahead and accept nominations for president from the members of the board.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I rise to nominate Director Steidel for the board presidency, and I do so for the following reasons. I do think it is important, very important, for us to continue the custom of rotating the position. So for one reason, and Director Steidel has already served as vice president, so she has been trained and she is ready for moving into the next step. In my interactions with Cindy, I've always found her to be reasonable and fair. So I have no doubt that she will fulfill the job of board president very well, and that she will conduct the meetings. I have no reservations whatsoever. I do want to recognize President Farmer's contribution, and this should by no means be interpreted as a vote of no confidence against our current president, but I really believe that it's very important to pursue this, to preserve the custom of rotating the chairmanship out. And as I said, I really believe that Director Steidel will do an excellent job. So there is really no reason why she should not be president. So I hereby nominate her.
All right, thank you very much, Director Howell. Do we hear any other nominations? Seeing none, let's have a roll call vote. And Osuna, why don't you go ahead and do that, please?
Sure. Director Howell.
I vote for Cindy.
Director Dean.
Yes.
Director Tom Gray.
Director Steidel.
Okay.
Cindy Steidel. Yeah.
Steidel.
I vote for Cindy. Yeah, I vote for Cindy Steidel. Okay, thank you.
And Director Cindy. Vice President.
Okay. Yes, I will vote for myself.
Okay. So we have 5 ayes.
Oh, you forgot somebody.
Yeah, Harry.
Actually,
so
you need your.
How quickly we forget.
Excuse me, Director Farmer.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and vote for Cindy.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to make this comment as I exit the president's chair. I appreciate the many comments that were made by the members of the community. It's very touching and very heartwarming to get that much support. So thank you all so much. Cindy, it's all yours.
Thank you, Director Farmer. Moving then to the next agenda item, which is the agenda review, additions and deletions. And I request if anyone has either.
Excuse me, President Stidel, we have to elect a vice president.
Right. Oh, that's right.
Yes.
One hurdle. Okay. I'd like to open up nominations for vice president, please. Ms. Dean, I saw your name, your hand first, please.
I would like to nominate Don Howell as vice president.
Thank you. Do I hear any other nominations? Hearing none, then may we move to a vote? Osana, please.
Yes. Director Dean?
Yes.
Yes. Director Gray?
Don Howell. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Director Farmer?
Sure.
And Director Cindy? President?
Yes. That's fine. That's fine. Yes, Don Howell. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And the motion has passed with 5.
One more. You need one more vote,
Oh
Osana.
my goodness.
That's okay. I vote for myself.
All right. Director Howell for Vice President Howell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So the vote is 5-0 for
5-0.
Vice President for Vice President Don Howell.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
So the last item then within the opening is the agenda review for additions and deletions. Do I hear any from any of the board members? Any requests? All right, we'll move on then to acknowledgements. And we certainly have an acknowledgement that we want to make today for a now past member of the board who had been our president as well as a director, Amanda Rice. And I would like to pass this on, please, to Director Farmer in terms of a proclamation that we've, I believe, already provided to Amanda. Is that a correct statement, Mr. Whitefold?
Well, John, I think Cindy's asking you if Amanda's already received a copy of the proclamation.
Joy, I had stepped out to direct Amanda to be brought in. Yes, Amanda has her hard copy.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah,
Lovely. In full display. Excellent. Okay, and so I call on Director Farmer to please provide the proclamation for former Director Rice.
It sounds good. I just want to make a comment before I start reading this that President Stidel and I met 3 times for a number of hours in total. And it was a very cordial gathering between us. And we actually had a lot of fun putting this together, especially, and I hesitate to say this, but, you know, we were using some previous proclamations to kind of get an idea what to do. And we saw that some of them just had the regular kind of cookie cutter, same comments as things were winding down. And we decided not to do that, but to make all of ours as original as possible. So with those thoughts in mind, I hereby state the proclamation for Amanda Rice, Director, for her service to the community. Whereas Amanda Rice has been a resident of Cambria since January 2001, during which time she has committed herself fully and tirelessly to the health, safety, prosperity, and well-being of our community. And whereas Amanda has served her community as a successful businesswoman, volunteer, and civic leader, including her years of service on the North Coast Advisory Council, during which time she served as treasurer and then as chairperson for 2 years. And whereas Amanda was continuously interested in working with other agencies within the county and at the state level for the benefit of Cambria residents. And whereas Amanda pursued additional training and education in best practices of governance, earning her certificate in special district governance from the Special District Leadership Foundation. And whereas Amanda served with distinction as a director of the Cambria Community Services District for 8 years, including twice serving as board president during very challenging periods. She often raised discussion of minority opinions, giving voice to points of view that increase the value of decision-making. And whereas during her service on the board, Amanda worked continuously toward improved fiscal oversight, including establishing parameters for zero-based budgeting for the district's fiscal budget process. In addition, Amanda prioritized and implemented streamlining of internal practices, improving efficacy and transparency. And whereas she served as chairperson of the Policy Standing Committee, as a member of the board ad hoc committee, which conducted the search for a general manager, as well as the committee overseeing the coastal development permit application. And whereas Amanda has proactively brought issues of external importance to the board's attention, demonstrated most recently by the letter of support for the Chumash Marine Sanctuary, which was unanimously approved by the CCSD board. Now, therefore, on this 10th day of December, 2020, and by virtue of the authority vested in me as president, and on behalf of the board of directors and staff of the Cambria Community Services District, I hereby extend the deepest and most sincere appreciation of the entire Cambria community to Amanda Rice for her leadership and service to Cambria, the Central Coast, and the County of San Luis Obispo. Thank you. Congratulations, Amanda.
Thank you so much. If I might just have a couple of minutes to say thank you. What a lovely resolution. Thank you both for writing up such a lovely piece of work. It made me cry when I read it this morning a little bit earlier. Thank you, General Manager Weigold, for bringing that over by. First, let me congratulate the 3 people that were recently elected, President Farmer, Director Farmer, and President I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Send me off the board and I don't even know who's who anymore. Tom Gray and Karen Dean, congratulations on your win and joining the board. I thank the entire community for their support over the 8 years and their input and feedback. I just want to call out a couple of people who've really been important in how I developed as a director and my participation in the community. First one is my husband, Gordon, who was always very supportive. Second, Kathy Tanner. Who could ask for a better friend than a newspaper writer if you're a politician, right? Merle Clift, who acted as a mentor for me in my first term, and whose leadership and the way he sees things have always guided how I've served. I will never forget the impact that Fire Chief Mark Miller had on me as a Cambrian in supporting him in the fire department before I was on the board. And Wyatt, who encouraged me to join NCAC and run for that office. I also want to thank the board that I served with most recently, Cindy, Dawn, David, Harry. What a joy it has been to actually get some of the things accomplished that I joined this board to do. Just 2 more quick things. I could give you all kinds of advice about conflict can be healthy and come to the meetings with an open mind and keep an eye on making sure the relationships both within and outside the organization are vital and help everybody involved. In 2001, Director Funky Blue was on the board that declared the moratorium, and he used to start the meetings by saying how many days it had been since they declared the moratorium. The reason I bring this up, because it has been 997 months. 997, almost 1,000 months since it was declared, and it's that emergency declaration is supposed to be a temporary fix. And one of the things that it's important to reflect on in this sense is that there's an idea about shifting baselines, that the way that it is when you enter something is the baseline and everything is measured from that change. Well, that baseline when you come in doesn't go back much more than 10 years. So it's important that you update what your assumptions are, as Marshall McLuhan has always said. And I would like to give this one piece of advice that I think can be really helpful, which is this. Being a leader means taking the long view. It means not giving in to the short-term solutions, which may be easier or less expensive, not kicking the can down the road, but instead looking at the long term and making decisions that may be more difficult because the results aren't obvious for a very long time, because it's a long-term plan. I just urge you to try to get clarity, because ambiguity in leadership has gotten us where we are today in this country, and having strong leaders that understand what you all understand what each other is doing, and you all understand you're part of one unit of the board. This district is more than water, sewer, fire, parks, street lighting. We need to stop focusing so much just on the one thing, because moving forward, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but I would like to see this community become a model community, and a community that we all want to live in, that's sustainable and resilient, because we are managing our resources instead of fighting over one little segment of what it is that this district provides for our community members. I wish you all the very best with your new general manager, your new district secretary, board clerk, district secretary, and all of the different changes that we have. And I'm looking forward to not attending these meetings every month, but I will miss you all. Thank you, everybody, and especially to you, Harry and Cindy. What a lovely resolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for the contributions that you made, and not always in easy circumstances, and your overriding desire always to move the community forward in the things that it needed to look at for itself. And you provided a very valuable contribution in doing that. So personally, my thanks to you for the contribution and effort that you put into making that happen. And I'm sure any number of us on the board will continue to try to draw on those experiences with you.
I'm not changing my phone number.
Thank you. Okay. Well, that was a heartfelt delivery of reference and call to the community. So I really appreciate her straightforwardness and the conversation that she offered all of us. with the acknowledgements out of the way, unless Mr. Weigold, there was an acknowledgement I wasn't aware of for some reason and would overlook, but I think that that would allow us now to move on to the next agenda item.
President Stidel, we do have one more acknowledgement, and that is recognizing our 6 new reserve firefighters.
Oh,
For that, I'll
excellent.
introduce
Thank
Chief
you.
Hollingsworth.
William, go ahead. Did you? Hi. Hello, Chief. Go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon. Just wanted to say hi and thank you for letting us be here today. I want to let you know that we've just gone through the hiring process and we've been able to pick up 6 new reserves that we're being able to add to our ranks. We have 5 on the floor now that have finished all their training, and we have 1 additional that's in backgrounds right now to be coming on as well. We had planned to have everybody here today to be able to introduce them and let them introduce themselves a little bit, give you a little bit of the background. Unfortunately, due to work and training, only one of those people have been able to be here, but we have Christian Evers here today, and I'd like to introduce him, and he would give you a little bit more about himself.
Hello, how are you all doing today?
Hello,
Hi.
Christian.
Hi. Nice to meet you. My name is Christian Evers. I'm very happy to be here. I grew up in Cayucas. I moved down to San Diego when I was 21. I started working down there in an art design studio, and I was teaching in after-school programs. And that is where I took my EMT because I had a 4th grade student that was an epileptic, and I didn't know what to do in case he had a seizure. So I got my EMT that way. And then circumstantially, I was just doing it for the knowledge because I was concerned because I didn't know what to do. And in case of that, and I circumstantially moved back home to the Central Coast. And as soon as I came home, I started working as a EMT firefighter with South Bay Fire Department. It's a Cal Fire Station in Los Osos. And I just really wanted to gain experience in that. And that has led me to the place now where I work on the ambulance here in the services district. I've been there since August of 2019. And I'm excited to be here, and I'm currently in paramedic school. So that's just a little synopsis of what's brought me here and at this point.
Well, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Additionally, just want to let you know the names of the other people that we've brought on. We have Brad Dunn, Clifford Elgin, Trevor Black, Richard Paciorini, and Tyler Loudermilk. And then I also wanted to recognize one other person in this process, and that is Noah Munns. If you remember on our reserve roster, Noah has been one of our reserve firefighters for a number of years now, and he just completed all of the training and prerequisites to upgrade to engineer status on our reserves, which means he's able to drive and operate all of our apparatus and be able to fill in behind our engineers as necessary. So a big kudos to all of these people. We're very happy to have them on board, and I look forward to being able to introduce them at a later time if they're available.
And that would be a wonderful opportunity to be able to meet them face to face as the availability presents itself. And thank you so much, Chief, for bringing forward the additions to the fire department. I know that it's something that is of great value and interest for you, and I'm glad to see that you've got the additional folks on board now.
Thank you, President Saito.
Thank you. So I will ask a question just because I'm seeing a name on the tile display that I'm not familiar with. Bob Lloyd, is that someone else or is that?
It's AGP.
It's AGP.
Oh, okay. I'm seeing the monitor tile. I didn't realize that there was a second tile for the name. Thank you. And so the commission reports, the only report that I believe that we have on the agenda today is the PROS chairman report. But I don't see Mr. Niffen. Have we heard anything from him in terms of his availability today?
I do not see him on the attendee list. And I have not received any type of email.
Okay,
And
all right. Are you aware of any, will he be coming later, Mr. Weigold? Have you heard anything or?
I have not heard anything from him. I'll check in right now with him just to see if he's able to join us.
All right. We can give it just a moment to see if you're able to make contact with him immediately. Well, what we can always do is move on to the public comment for items not on the regular business. Oh, Ms. Duffield?
President Steidel, Julie Amadai just raised her hand. Maybe she's has information regarding Steve Niffen.
All right.
okay, I'll allow
Ms.
her.
Amadei?
Go ahead, Julie.
Thank you so much. Steve is trying to get on the call right now. So.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We can certainly give it a moment and see, and keep an eye out for him on the attendees side, maybe.
Will do. I am looking.
President Steidel, I also see Kitty Conley's got her hand raised too. I don't know if she.
Right. I was just thinking that perhaps we could call on her in the event that it was something other than the public comment, if there was something she wanted to address. If it was a public comment, we'll probably give it just a moment longer to see if we can bring Steve into the conversation. Ms. Conley, was there something other than the public comment?
It's public comment.
It is
Public comment? I don't know.
No, not yet.
Public comment.
We were waiting to see if, well, what we're going to do then is go ahead and move on to public comment, and we'll come back for the pros chairman report when Steve's been able to get himself online and established with us. So I'll move that we go ahead and move to and go forward with the public comment. And these are public comments on items other than those in regular business. So is there anyone who wishes to speak? Okay.
Yes, there is.
Looks like well, Kitty Conley had her hand up initially first.
So I allowed her to speak right now. So
right.
Does she? Go ahead, Kitty.
Hi. Thanks for letting me speak. I am just here because I wanted to thank John Weigel and Tim Carmel for their help in resolving an encroachment issue on the ranch. It was one of a long-standing, and it was resolved smoothly and amicably from everyone involved, and FFRP and myself in particular really appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that positive feedback for the staff. It isn't often they get to hear that directly in public formats, so it was appreciated. Osana, I'll turn it back to you for.
Yes. Steve has joined. If he wanted to speak now, or do you want to finish with the two other public comments?
I would like to have Steve go ahead and come in so we can stay in alignment with the agenda. And I apologize for making Mr. Lyons and Tony, I'm sorry, there is no second name, waiting for your public comments if you can, please. So, Mr. Niffen.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
Yes, yeah, you.
Nice, I'm sorry.
Oh, not to worry.
All right, can you hear me now? No, not there.
All right. So your pros report, please.
All right, here we go. Sorry. Listen, I've got 3 things on the report. The first thing that we want to bring up that was talked to me about Jim is he just literally wants to reiterate to everybody that pros is not funded, that it doesn't come out of the general fund. The money that we get comes from someplace else. And there is going to be a need someday to have to fund Parks and Recreation in Cambria. That day is not today, but that day is in the future. And Mr. Beringer and most of the board just want to reiterate that we are working without money that comes from the general fund, or it doesn't come from the water and sewer rates. Anyway, at some point, we're going to have to fund this thing. And I think that's something that we don't ever want to lose our direction on, because we also brought up the fact that we had talked about right before COVID hit, we were working on trying to get that overbearing foundation started to cover a lot of the recreation aspects in Cambria. And we want to bring that up again too. That's not off the plate, but because of COVID, it kind of has gotten shoved, you know, to the background. So that was one thing Jim wanted to bring up. The other thing was that, let me stop that, is that, what was the other thing? Hold on, Carlos not funded, Jim's point, the proposal, the ad hoc committee of Stan and Joyce have met with the group, and it's basically coming down to that question about design bid and design bid build. And the recommendation is that we can seriously consider the design build and the application of using that special project that we can use. I can't think of it. I don't have it written down right now, where somebody help me with that.
Sourcewell.
Sourcewell, where we look, it's where we seriously consider Sourcewell. So those are the 3 things that I had brought up. And other than that, if you have any questions, we can go from there.
Okay. I just will qualify in the first part of the funded. The Parks and Recreation is part of the overall general fund. And just to clarify for folks that the general fund is not something, is separate in its revenue resource from the enterprises, the water and the wastewater, and anything associated with that, and the rates charges that people experience go directly only to those sources. They don't supplement the general fund in any way. And the general fund is broad in terms of it being inclusive of the fire department and several other things, but it is a general fund reference. The ad hoc you mentioned, it's the ad hoc from the pros commission, correct?
Yeah, for the skate park.
Right, okay. And the idea of design then bid build versus the design bid build, we have been taking direction from our legal counsel, Mr. Carmel, in that regard. And perhaps once again, Mr. Carmel, would you like to address that item so that, you know, as wide an audience as possible can hear this, so that they understand the difference between what someone feels that they could bring versus the idea of what we have to follow legally.
Thank you, President Stidel. First of all, I too would love to see this project built with a straightforward design build. It's much cleaner for a project like this, but the Public Contracts Code has a statute in it that sets the threshold for design build at $1 million. Now, I was provided with a list of cities in the state of California that I think the skate group had identified as using design build to build a skate park. And we did follow up on that 2 of those cities are charter cities who aren't required to follow the public contracts code. The third city is a general law city, so I called the city attorney, and the city attorney said that the RFP for that project, which was a design build RFP, was done by mistake and it was not utilized in the project. So that explained why those 3 entities, at least appeared to have used design build. 2 of them actually did. We don't know any other way around the law. Perhaps if they'd like to provide me with some other authority that would allow us to do it, I'd certainly look at it. But as it is now, we're bound by the public contracts code provision. And this project's substantially less than $1 million. So that's why we find ourselves having to use traditional design bid build.
And so Sourcewell's not a part of that?
Sourcewell? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, they keep talking that
President Stadel can
Sourcewell is
address that part.
outside of that contracting obligation. Is that true?
Well, it's our responsibility to comply with the law.
And all right, well, it's beyond me. Are you familiar with Sourcewell and what Sourcewell is?
I think they're a design build skate park company, aren't they?
Well, no, it's just, it seems like it's another application of a way to build things in government.
Well, perhaps you could provide me with the material regarding Sourcewell, and I'll certainly look at it.
Okay.
I'll do anything I can to make.
Yeah, no, I know. The one thing that we keep getting back to is we really believe that we're all on the same page. We all want to get this thing done. We've got money. We're just kind of grinding through the machinations of government and bureaucracy trying to get it done. So and me being the leader isn't helping anything. So I'm sorry.
And I'll certainly take another try at finding a way around the public contracts code provision.
Okay.
No, it's very meaningful to do this project as a design build project. So we'll take another look at it, and anything you can provide to assist,
okay,
or that the skate group could provide, I'd love to look at it, see if we can find a way.
Okay.
Yeah, President Stidel, if I could just make a comment with regard to Sourcewell. This is the information that I got on Tuesday. I believe John was there as well. I hope he doesn't mind me jumping in, but Sourcewell, it's a government agency, and it's kind of a hybrid of design build and design build and design bid build. And they kind of go through this process. They're kind of a selection committee, and they ultimately choose the contractor that bids on the project. So like I say, it's a government agency, and they're kind of a blend of the two. And being able to use them would probably be the most efficient way of going about getting the ultimate contractor to do this project. All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Niffen, is there anything else that you wanted to address, or are you available for potential questions? Because I did notice that there were some community members that
yeah, no,
had
I'm
their
not going
hands up, and I'm not sure whether this was specific to the skate park or not, or back prior with public comment, but let's find out by asking them.
Well, I have one more thing. Is it possible for my ad hoc committee to address this group at some point in the future and not be me?
Oh, absolutely. If you want to have them come and represent, you know, the feedback from the pros commission, we'd be more than happy to hear.
Would
them.
it behoove us to get them on the agenda?
Absolutely.
Is it like, so next Thursday I should have them ready?
Well, no, what we need to do is if you would coordinate, please, with Mr. Weigold. And generally, the review of the agenda is done with the president and the vice president. Now, with it being so close to the next meeting, we may run up against a time frame of it being outside when we would be able to get it on and get it posted. So we'll work that out. But if you could just coordinate that back with Mr. Weigold, then we'll do whatever we can to get it on the agenda, either with the upcoming meeting or as quickly after that. So Osana, could we please go to the attendees who have their hands up? If if your comments are specific to the pros commission, that's what we're addressing right now. Thank you.
All right, yes, I'd like to have Michael Lyons go ahead and speak.
I'm going to wait till the public comment period.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. And Tony, go ahead. Tony, are you there? Unmute yourself, Tony.
Hi, this is Tony Church. I sent a letter in for public comment and Osana started to read it out earlier. So I'd like her to read it again. I don't have it in front.
Tony, we'll be happy to do that. We're just, we were just catching up on some comments from the pros commission.
Yeah.
So I apologize for having to wave you off for just a moment, but we will certainly do that as soon as we get to the public comment portion.
Yes, okay. And I'm gonna ask Christine Heinrichs to talk. Go ahead, Christine.
Thank you. The board, in making decisions on how to spend the district's money, has decided that a $20,000 bonus for the general manager, over $20,000,
I'm sorry, Ms.
$9,000 reimbursed later from a grant to
Ms.
install
Heinrich?
electric vehicle charging stations,
Excuse me,
adding more
Ms. Heinrich?
employees,
One moment.
are more important than paying for a skate park. The twice yearly payment for the emergency water supply project, which continues not to operate.
Sorry, I know that you wanted only to listen to the comments right now. So I'm gonna put Claudia Harmon next to talk about the pros. Go ahead, Claudia, is it about the pros committee?
Yes, it is. Hello, everyone. Beautify Cambria has been in discussion with the Pros Commission about the possibility of being part of the landscaping aspect of this. We still have not seen a plan, so we're not sure if there will be any land to landscape. We just don't have any finalized on that, but we're considering it, just to give you some background. But I think I'm really concerned about your thinking that you want this to be a design build. I think that's a misuse of funds. I think that you need to go to a bidding process. I think that if Beautify Cambria is going to get involved in it, we want to make sure that we get the best price for the best work. I also think that it's important for us to see some local people get into the bidding process. Beautify Cambria is proud to say that all of the work that we do, we have done by local people. I think that's important. If this is going to be a community project, it should be done by somebody who's leased in the Central Coast, not out of state. I think that design is quite interesting. I think we should get the best person to design it, but not necessarily to build it as well. I think it'll be a lot less expensive to not bring somebody in from out of state. I'm also concerned about, and I'm sure this will all come up, but I'm concerned about the insurance. You know, you're considering building a concrete skate park, and yes, how it's very durable, but also can crack heads. And I know that a lot of the kids don't like to wear helmets. So I just want to know what you've discussed about the responsibility for the insurance on that. The liability on it could be quite high. Also, I'd like to know about the water availability. I know there is water there, but nobody's told us how much water, and will we be able to use that water for landscaping? What about the amenities like a toilet, trash receptacles, and things like that? So, you know, this needs, in order to be a public project, I think this needs to be more than just a skate park. It needs to be a public facility, you know, in using public money, because this is a CCSD land. So anyway, those are my comments right now. I'm still very interested in Beautify Cambria looking at this, but we can't go forward with this until we have more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the community regarding the Pros Commission report? Okay, seeing none, then we will, okay, it's seeing that Ms. Amade's come on. It's potentially, I mean, it's certainly possible that she may have something regarding the skate park, so.
Go ahead.
Thank you, President Seidel. I'll make it brief. We're so grateful for the ad hoc that has been added to this entire initiative. We had a very fluid meeting on Tuesday. Harry was part of that meeting, as well as, of course, Steve. And Claudia, I would like to sidebar with you. There's a lot of education that needs to go into your understanding of design build. This is a very specialized project. You can't just hire a local contractor to build the skate park. And I'd be more than happy to go into detail with you on that. I certainly understand the concern of public funds and being responsible with that. And if I would be so, Tim, if I can just ask you directly, I hope I can, I'd love to put you in direct contact with Aaron Spahn and with Vince, their VP of Skate Park Development, so they can have a fluid conversation with you on how this has been achieved with multiple different contracts within the state. We are a smaller district, and we can only do our best in bringing the information forward, and then we've got to work through this process. So I asked very early on to Mr. Weigel if we could pay for council's time. I mean, the skate initiative was happy to pay for the time. We would love to let you speak to them directly so that they can show you how it's being done. And again, Claudia, I'd be happy to have a more in-depth conversation with you, because we've spent many, many, many hours learning other projects that have gone through those processes of design, bid, build, and it has failed horribly, from the ability to build a skate park that is safe, because there's a lot more that goes into building a skate park than just pouring concrete. You have to understand transitions and the flow of the park itself. So I will make sure to reach out to you and bring you up to speed on the education of why this approach is much different than just some of the traditional projects that have taken place here in Cambria. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hamday. All right. I believe that Christine would, Mr. Howell or Director Howell, was there, or Vice President Howell? I'm going to get it in.
This is just very brief. It's in response to Ms. Hamday. And it's a question for council. Do we need a motion to instruct council to talk with the skate park folks?
No.
Okay, I just want to be sure you were comfortable. You feel sufficiently guided by the board to go forward. And does the board feel like they want to pay for your time on this? I guess my understanding is the board wants to build a skate park, and so it would be appropriate for them to consult with you. But I just didn't know if we've formalized it or not.
Well, I certainly would support that. I think that it's a minor impact in terms of the amount of time for Mr. Carmel and potentially Mr. Weigold and Ms. Amadei, and maybe even Mr. Niffen to be able to participate in a Zoom meeting of some kind and have a dialogue and see if we can't kind of get a few things nailed down so that we're not continuously moving from one piece to the next because we haven't resolved specific issues. And I think if we can get some things in black and white, it'll help us build the foundation that we need to get to where I think all of us would like to have for the skate park.
And I welcome the opportunity to talk with this outfit to see if we can do it that way.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. May I ask you, and or I guess Ms. Amadei, if you would mind reaching out to Mr. Weigold, and he would be able to establish something for a Zoom environment for yourself and potentially your ad hoc committee and Mr. Carmel, and have a dialogue regarding the questions or the issues that you were putting forward or the information you were putting forward. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. President Seidel, would you like me then to just email Mr. Weigel directly? In other words, what is our quickest approach?
I think that would be I think that would be the fastest way to facilitate it. And
I'd be happy to do
Mr.
that.
Carmel can take it from there.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Niffen, anything else before we move on? Okay. Fine. Can we please then move back to public comment and continue with the items that I think we still had outstanding from that? And it appears Ms. Hendricks has her hand up, and I believe we need to go back to a letter that Mr. Church had submitted also.
Okay, go ahead, Christine Heinrichs.
Yes, thank you. I was finishing my remarks, which are about the skate park, that in regard to the money that it will cost to build the skate park. The board, in making decisions on how to spend the district's money, has decided that a $20,000 bonus to the general manager and over $20,000 with $9,000 to be reimbursed later from a grant to install electric vehicle charging stations and adding more district employees are more important than paying for a skate park. The twice yearly payment for the emergency water supply project, which continues not to operate, of $330,000, that's $660,000 every year, takes a big bite from the finances. Imagine the nice skate park Cambria could have for just one of those payments. These are choices the board has made. Every decision to spend money means the district can't afford some other project. Thank you all for speaking up to help the board make better choices.
Thank you, Ms. Hendricks. And I will qualify that the reference to the money in payments on the loan of the $666,000 are within the water fund and have nothing to do with the general fund. And the monies for the skate park would be coming from the general fund. So there's no conflict against one or the other in terms of financial decision making. And I believe Mr. Church had a letter. Osana, do you have that available?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you for that. So good afternoon, directors. First, I wish to thank David Pearson for raising the subject of fire hydrants at your last meeting, and I am looking forward to raise detailed analysis of where we currently stand. On another positive note, today I saw a CCSD crew up on Hartford in Pine Knoll servicing a hydrant. However, I would like some clarity on the number of hydrants that Ray expects to service each month. I have reviewed the tape from the last meeting and could not decipher the number he gave. Was it 6 or 60? I first raised the issue to the CCSD board on the 23rd of April 2015, and then several times thereafter with no response from Jerry Gruber. Then over a year later, on the 29th of September 2016, Chief Hollingsworth provided a written detailed plan to Jerry, and I was provided a copy. The proposed plan did not include flow testing or painting of the hydrants, but it seemed that this was at least a start. Even though the grand jury in its findings in May 2016 did not tackle the issue of hydrants, I think that this may have stimulated Jerry to some action. However, this is now 5.5 years from my initial inquiry and the work has still not been completed. I have researched other districts and the frequency of testing varies. I would like to know, bearing in mind the California Fire Code and the associated legal responsibility, what frequency of testing has been put in place, and it seems to me that we should now be testing the fire hydrants that were initially serviced. I would also like to know where we stand with flow testing. Thank you for your time and consideration, Tony Church.
Thank you, Tony. Osana?
Yes.
Has some additional community.
Yes, Michael Lyons to talk. Go ahead, Michael Lyons.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. This format of saying goodbye to former directors and welcoming the new ones does not really include a graceful period for the public to comment, but I'll try it anyway. And that is that I'm amazed that Amanda Rice had served for 8 years and so thankful to her. So I want to express my appreciation for her service and her grace in doing so. She was talking about the number of months since our moratorium is declared. Well, I'm sure that she has attended way more than 1,000 meetings during her 8 years. And I suppose the best compliment I could give her is that I, at least, was never quite sure how she would comment or come down in voting on any specific subject. And to me, that means a person with an open mind, and that's what she talked about. So I do praise her for that. I'd also like to give my very hearty praise to David Pearson, who has now left the board and who has been an example of a great liaison to the North Coast Advisory Council. Every time he's been there, which is almost every meeting that I can remember, he has presented the news about your board to the rest of the public that the North Coast Advisory Council serves in a very efficient and professional way. So I thank him for his service, both the CCSD and as your liaison. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Asana, you're muted.
All right, thank you. And Elizabeth, I think Bettenhausen, go ahead. And unmute yourself. Elizabeth?
Sorry, I don't read all the signs simultaneously.
Go ahead.
Gerald Ford was not my favorite president. I want to address an issue that will come up at your next meeting, I hope. I've been following very carefully on social media, especially on Nextdoor, on this issue, the question of how Cambria deals with people without homes, or at least without shelter, even though their home is along the creek. I don't want to take any position right now, but what I urge you to do when the agenda is developed for next week, and urge all the board members then, in addition to the officers, I urge you to look at the social media in Cambria, especially Nextdoor, at the discussion of this question. It addresses many aspects of your responsibilities, not the least is what to do about the condition of the creeks, but also how you are responsible to people who are in Cambria, whether they're full-time residents in houses or not. I think there's also a dimension here of the issue of climate change, and I bring it up not unexpectedly, but the past week has been sobering about this issue. NPR today has been really sobering about this issue and what they're reporting. And I urge you, even when you look at a specific issue like the so-called homeless people in this town, that you look at the question of how you are responsible for many aspects of how Cambria deals with climate crisis. So please think about this agenda item. Mr. Mendoza gave a spectacularly excellent presentation at the last pros meeting on this question. I mean, it was really superb. And I trust that he would do that again next week under the guidance, of course, of the general manager. So I look forward to your meeting next week. I'm looking forward to the rest of your meeting today. And so I'll stop.
Thank you, Ms. Bettenhausen.
Thank you. And Laura and Crosby Swartz, go ahead.
Thank you. I just had it was an interesting discussion about using the design build process for the skate park. I just had a question for the board for the future. The as I understand it, the PG&E turnkey projects are all design build projects, and some of them individually may be lower than the $1 million limit. So it'd be interesting to hear if any of our PG&E projects would be limited or prohibited against using the design build process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crosby. I believe that's it then in terms of public comment. And Director Farmer?
Yeah, thank you, President Stidel. There is this raised hand down there, excuse me. I just wanted to make a brief comment with regard to Ms. Bettenhausen's remarks about the climate crisis, climate emergency that we're in. I've been walking the woods here for the 34 years that I've lived here. And I would have to say that right now, I have never seen the wooded areas that I walk through with regularity as stressed as they are right now. And it is rather frightening to me, the condition of the wooded areas, like I said, in our community, much less what is happening all across our planet. But I just wanted to make people aware of that, and just consider, have all Cambrians consider in one fashion or another how we can use less water in whatever way, and collect whatever rainwater comes down from the sky, because it's fairly obvious that this coming year is going to be maybe one of the most significant challenges with regard to water availability that we've ever had in this community. So I just wanted to mention that while it's on my mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Farmer. Okay. Any other board members? No. We'll move on to regular business then. And the agenda item 5A is going to be introduced to us, please, by GM Weigold.
Yes, President Stidell, agenda item 5A is its discussion and consideration of adoption of resolution 54-2020, establishing the 2021 CSD regular board meeting schedule. We've attached the proposed list of dates. The only one that we have identified as requiring some adjustment is the second board meeting in December, or excuse me, the second board meeting in November, first meeting in November, which currently would fall on for the second Thursday on November 11th, which is Veterans Day, a national holiday. So just recommending that the board discuss that for a recommendation for a change.
Okay, thank you. So I'll pass to the board. Are there any other dates of consideration that any of you would like to make in this discussion? And are there any suggestions regarding the date for the 1st November meeting of 2021? It looks like there are no other. Oh, okay. Okay. I'm not sure who had their hand up first. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Director Gray.
Yeah, I'll just throw out a date, Tuesday, the Tuesday of that week, would be November 9th. See if anyone has a problem with that.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So I concur with new Director Gray on November 9th, especially because the 10th is a Wednesday, and that's usually when the Fire Safe Focus Group meets.
Right.
And we want to conflict with them.
Okay. Good. And Ms. Dean? Director Dean?
I'm good with the 9th as well. And I like the way that we are starting the meetings at 2 o'clock if we need to decide on a time.
Yeah, it appears that the time isn't under discussion at this point, but I've had 2 recommendations for November 9th. Is that a date that the other board members feel that they could support? Okay, I don't see anything in, yes, Vice President Howell?
Yes, I can support that. I think we might need a motion though.
I agree.
But I definitely support that, yes.
Oh, Mr. Carmel? No?
No, I won't. I have an Arroyo Grande City Council meeting that day, so I don't think I would be able to attend.
Ah.
Oh, let's see. What else could we do? Well, Friday.
How about
Monday.
Friday? How about Friday morning, the 12th at 10 o'clock?
That's actually a staff day off.
I was just going to ask you. Thanks.
All right.
Jim Weigold.
I'd recommend Wednesday.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, President Stidell. I just recommend the day before, Wednesday the 10th.
Well, one benefit is that the Fire Safe Focus Group is something that is, oh, no, I was thinking that it was recorded, but it is not. But they do publish minutes, recorded minutes. Are there members of the board that are actually participating in that committee that it would be be an issue? Yeah, Director Gray?
I think I am, yes, I am. I think Karen raised her hand too.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
But-
don't we have one of the board members be a liaison to that committee? So
We'll be discussing that later.
Right.
okay, what about if we,
Previously, it had been Director Pearson because he was already a participant in the committee.
what if we did it in the morning on that day?
Certainly,
Yeah, we could do that. 10 o'clock.
because the meeting
10 a.m.
itself generally starts at what, 3 o'clock?
3,
Yeah.
yes.
So, yeah.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Is that the 10th?
10?
10th at 10?
Yeah.
November 10th, and it'll be at 10 a.m. If that's acceptable for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Carmel, do we need a motion for that, or are we just accepting it by the resolution approval?
You'll just accept it through the resolution.
Thank you. All right, then I would like to hear a motion for the resolution regarding the board meeting, please, or regarding the schedule.
So move to adopt the schedule.
Right. Could you go ahead and state, I don't know whether you have it in front of you, but if you could state the motion with the resolution number so that we have it for reference, please.
I move that resolution under number 54-2020, establishing the 2021 CCSD regular board meeting schedule be adopted.
Thank you. In a second.
I second the motion, but is not the time of day the meetings are part of this resolution?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Oops.
Okay. Backtracking for a moment then to determine if it is something that wants to be addressed by the board in terms of the times established, which generally have been 2 o'clock unless there was a special meeting or an exception, as we've just done by this date.
Right.
Could I
Director Gray?
don't know if I could resubmit my motion or as an amendment, but include the times.
Well, I just wanted to check with the board to make
Right,
sure
see,
first
yeah.
that they,
Right.
that was the case. And I'm not hearing anything to the contrary. So yes, if you could amend that, please, to include.
I would add as an amendment to my motion, or as an addition, amendment to my motion that the meetings be held at 2 p.m. on all the designated days except for November 10th, when it will be at 10 a.m.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
I second
And a
that.
second, thank you, Ms. Dean, or Director Dean. When you get the language down first, I apologize, and please extend me the the opportunity to get my practice in motion. I apologize. Okay, we've had a motion and a second, and so Asana, could you please do the roll call for us?
Yes. So to move the dates to 2 p.m. on the listed schedule, and with Director Gray, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Dean,
Yes.
Director Farmer,
Aye.
Vice President Howell,
Aye.
and President Stidel.
Aye. And so the vote is 5-0 affirmative
Thank you.
for accepting the schedule with days and with the time being at 2 p.m. with the exemption of the first meeting November 10th at 10 a.m. All right. Second order of business is the discussion and consideration of ad hoc standing committee chair and liaison appointments.
Okay.
And again, I will have GM Weigold introduce it, please.
Yes, President Stidel, agenda item 5B, staff is recommending that the board of directors review the ad hoc standing committee chair and liaison appointments, determine if the election of the officers has any effect on the current appointments, and make new appointments as necessary.
Thank you. So what I would like to suggest is that although it started out with ad hoc and then to standing committee chairs and to liaisons, I'd like to address the committee, standing committee chairs first, because depending on that assignment, that could have some kind of tie-in or fall over for whatever the ad hoc committees are in standing. And that way we would know or have that as frame of reference. The other thing I'd like to suggest is that we start with the policy committee, because the other two committee chairs, one is leaving, and then I would be stepping down from finance because I would be taking the presidency, and that was something that was established with Director Pearson previously, and I think is an appropriate thing to do, so that the president is focused specifically towards a wider view of the board business. So if you don't mind, we'll start with policy. And as Vice President Howell is the only person from the board who is currently serving as a committee chair here, I'll ask first if he was still interested in continuing that contribution.
Thank you, thank you, President Steidel. Yes, I am willing to continue yet another year on that. I think it won't interfere with the vice presidential duties, since I think the president has most of the work on that one. So yeah, I'll stick with it unless there's somebody else that really wants it.
Well, I think you do an admirable job of it, so I'm more than happy to think that you're willing to continue with that chair position, and thank you. Okay. We move on then to resources and infrastructure, and previously that had been Director Pearson, and the co-chair of that committee, and the committee most affected by the new positions being placed on the board, the vice chair or the co-chair of that committee was Director Dean. So I guess first I'll ask if Ms. Dean, if that would be something that you consider as a chair position that you would want to assume.
Most definitely, thank you.
Okay. Do I hear anything from any of the other directors in that regard?
That's good.
Okay.
Support. Yeah.
Thank you. So appreciate your willingness to take that on. I know there's going to be a lot of work associated with that, but feel very comfortable with the experience and background you have in it too, that it will be a good assignment. So we move on to finance, and I do have a recommendation that I would like to make for finance, and that's for Tom Gray. And what I'd like to do is probably outline a little bit of something, because I don't know if the folks on the board are that aware of the depth of his financial background. But he does have an MBA with a focus in finance. And he was an editor for Investor Daily at one point in his career. And so he's worked in both the private and the public sector, which bring in two different experiences completely in terms of finance. And he's very knowledgeable in the elements of finance in terms of the balance sheet and profit loss audit, deep experience in audit and accounting practices. And so I think you would be an excellent fit in taking on a role of the financial chair. Financial standing committee. So I guess my question first is whether Director Gray would consider taking that position.
I would. Thank you.
And then I'd like to move to the board to see if anyone has another perspective or an objection to that.
I just want to say Tom would have been my first choice also, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Farmer. Vice President Howell?
I would say the same as Director Farmer. I'm just only concerned that it might appear to Director Gray a little bit too much like work.
Had enough retirement already, right?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Director Dean.
Yeah, I agree too. I think Tom would be great on that committee.
Okay, excellent. Well, we've been able to address the standing committee items. So shall we move on to the ad hoc committees then? So what I'd like to do, if we can, that might get us focused directly to the things we need to be making some decisions about, is come to agreement on the ad hoc committees that have either been disbanded or have submitted final reports or completed their what they were asked to do. And in looking at these, if you go down the page, there are a total of 11 of them. And if we were dropped down to number 8, which is explore potential creation of regional wastewater facility, I believe that was disbanded, if I have my reference points correct. So I think that we can remove that from having to take it into discussion, if that's all right with the rest of the membership.
Yeah.
With the rest of the board. Okay. The one just below it also recommended bylaw amendments regarding board member participation at standing committee meetings. This actually was completed and was addressed in the bylaws review, on July, and accepted the July 16, 2020. And it's 9.4.c. With the addressing of may attend as observer only and shall not participate. So I think we've taken action for that and incorporated it into the bylaws appropriately. And I'd like to recommend that we go ahead and strike that one from the list also. And if we move down to the next, it's review the ordinance 02-2020, amending sections 416 and 420 of the CCSD, municipal code related retrofit inspections and verifications. And Director Pearson had provided a final report on that not too long ago with information relative things that needed to be lined up and resolved with interfaces to the county first before we could take the final action in that. So I think that we go ahead and remove that from the ad hocs also, and we bring it back as necessary once there have been some determinations in that regard. And then the last is the board of directors assignments to standing committees and issues related to interaction between board of directors and standing committees and other related concerns. And this was an ad hoc that was assigned to myself and Director Rice that resulted in a rewrite of the standing committee bylaws with the caveat that once we get through what is actually regular business item C coming up, that there would probably be additional revisions that would need to happen to the committee standing bylaws. So that being the case, I think that, again, this is another item that can come off of the considerations for the ad hoc committees. So that leaves us with the first 6. And the first one is affordable housing. And that one, Vice President Howell, I don't know if you would like to addressing anything in that directly, other than in a lot of ways it's something that's an in-process function.
It's basically in process, and I'm certainly willing to continue with it. So there's nothing to report yet. I think we're waiting. But yeah, President Steidel, whether you feel that you have the time to continue with that or not, it's kind of as you want.
I would certainly like to, if the rest of the board is comfortable with that. It's something that Vice President Howell and I had have spent a great deal of time involved in, and I think we have kind of a good working knowledge of it. And I would like to continue in that also, if the rest of the board is comfortable with he and I continue to represent the affordable housing ad hoc.
Okay.
Unless anyone has any objections. Okay, thank you. The next one is grants, and this is defined as finance committee, and I think there probably needs to be a little bit of a caveat to this, although Director Gray, with you taking the finance department, this certainly would, bear feedback from you. But what we're really talking about here is not necessarily so much the idea that the finance committee goes out and finds grants, although the finance committee may be asked to look at them or look for them specifically, but this is more a function of review of the impact of grants being considered. And would that be an appropriate statement in your viewpoint?
There was review of, we're in the process with this ad hoc committee come in is when a grant has been applied for.
Well, it isn't so much an ad hoc committee as it is that, and I don't know. Well, that's a good point, because it really isn't so much an ad hoc committee, although there may be an ad hoc within the finance group that looks at things, but from a board perspective, what this does is basically make an assignment of responsibility for review of grants by the finance committee.
Yeah, that would make sense as a finance committee function, because I think one of the key things about reviewing grants is what, in fact, in addition to giving us money, what they obligate us to. And so their effect on the whole financial structure and our obligations as well as our assets, that would be a finance committee review function. So I would just not have I would just delete that line here on the ad hoc committee assignments and just say it's going to be a finance committee function.
Right, and just that it's a finance committee responsibility that the board has assigned to that standing committee. Okay. I don't know whether it's necessary or not, but just as a caveat to add in parens after grant that it's review, so there isn't a misunderstanding about the fact that the finance committee is responsible for.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, SWIFT and CDP. Now this one is.
Excuse me, President Stidel, Vice President Howell has his hand up.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Vice President Howell.
I'm sorry. Actually, I had two things. First of all, just to finish off on the grants, I think ultimately it might be appropriate if there was a particular grant that the Finance Committee wanted the board to consider in greater detail. We might at that point want to appoint an ad hoc committee to look at it, as a
on a singular case basis, right?
Yeah, if it's a significant, enough grant,
on this one, I would like to postpone this. I actually would like to postpone this until either our next meeting or the first meeting in January. It has to do with some future agenda item that I want to bring up. So I would prefer that we not reconstitute this committee at this time.
Are we speaking now of the SWIFT CDP?
Yeah.
Or are you still back with? Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So you moved on to the. Oh no, I just wanted to clarify. So understood. We can certainly do that. Just table it for the moment until we get to the point. What is your expectation of being able to bring that agenda item forward?
I would say first meeting in January.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay. Can can we get a thorough explanation of exactly what the SWF CDP ad hoc committee is responsible for, what their duties are in this committee? I agree with him on tabling it, but I think I would like to have a little bit of an explanation of exactly what is expected of the CDP committee. What is their responsibility?
Right. No, and I think it's an excellent point, Director Dean, particularly with both of the directors who had been involved in it having moved to, or moved off of that and actually moved off of the CCSD board. So I think that's fitting. And we can make that part of the review process. And we just need to be able to coordinate that in terms of an agenda item. And as Vice President Howell and I will be responsible for doing the agendas, I'm sure that we can find some ways to define all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I apologize for the, just wanted to make sure that I made some appropriate notes for myself. Okay, now moving on to the Tyler Encode. Previously, Director Farmer, or President Farmer and Director Howell had been involved in that. And I know that you had had some interface in that with our finance manager, Vice President Howell. And I'm not sure to what extent both you and Director Farmer were involved in that and whether that's something going forward. But I mean, if you're willing to participate, either individually or both of you in that, I think that that's lending a great benefit to being able to understand what's going to be the structure of the accounting practices and things with the new software.
Yes, may I kind of respond to that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. First of all, I'm having a great time. I have to tell you, I've been implemented software. I've been involved with it more often in failures than successes, I fear. This company is really phenomenal, and it's just to watch the process is fun. But in addition, and more germane, not just because it's fun for me, it's actually very valuable in getting some insight into the operations of the district and specifically the concerns that the finance manager has. And I'd like to invite Director Gray to join me. It's mainly we and keep track of the just basically join in on the go to meetings and questions if we have any. But it's mostly it's Pam and the developers that do the hard work, but it's very valuable, and I think there will be a payoff. Now I should warn you, Tom, there will be a point where some training starts, and while it's optional for us, I would highly recommend it, but it's considerable. And I'm not talking 2 or 3 hours. I'm talking like 12, 15, 20 hours worth of training. So if it's not that you have to do it.
No, I'd be happy to do that, actually. One question I have, I don't want to, maybe I should address this to the chair because it's sort of, to keep things going in the proper order. But once the installation is completed and the data inputting and so forth, I understand that's going to be sometime middle of the year, perhaps. Does this committee have a mission after that? And I mean, it's an open-ended question because I don't know if they do or not, but they might. But do you have any idea?
They might. I guess where it might be, I think where the committee involvement might happen would be in the event. I mean, the actual cutover is going to require a lot of staff time, and like anything, even with a good piece of software, there may be some issues, and it's well that the board be aware of any kind of things that might be coming up, because there may be issues where other deadlines might have to slip or other things. Normally it would not come to us, it'd really be the general manager's concern, but it's always helpful because ultimately the buck stops with us. And so the more we know about the operation of the business, the better we can serve the community. So that's not an answer to your question.
No,
but
no.
kind of
So
hard
it,
to we see
it sounds like, gentlemen, the ad hoc committee itself, it appears is reformulating itself for Vice President Howell and for Director Gray.
Yeah.
And I think that probably evaluating where that goes over time is going to be very dependent on how the process as a whole
Right.
evolves, and it may have. And I think that the idea that there are multiple directors who are willing to submit to the training processes that represents, especially with Director Gray taking on the Finance Committee, I think that's an excellent overarching. Ms. Duffield, do you have anything additionally to add to that, or any comment you'd like to make?
Oh, I should probably warn new Director Gray that the prior two directors had volunteered to do a lot of data input.
No.
But I just want to make sure you're clear what you might be getting into.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they can be called upon.
Right.
Just kidding.
Thank you, Ms. Duffield.
President Steidel, one final comment there, because we didn't really give Director Farmer a chance to speak on, and
I agree.
He had already, he and I have discussed this, and he had expressed a desire to not do this, but it really wasn't fair for me to speak ahead. So Director Farmer, I apologize if there's something you'd like to say on that.
Well, there's no need to apologize. And as both you and Ms. Duffield know, I just kind of eased out of being involved because I have to be honest with you. It was like, I understand that Director Pearson put me there so that a common person that has no understanding of what's going on could participate and then report back to the average person in the community. But this was so far over the way my brain functions that I had no idea what anybody was talking about. And my hat's off to and Ms. Duffield and Mr. Gray or Director Gray for stepping right in, because it's just not, like I said, it's not how my brain functions, you know, and so it's an embarrassing thing, but I'm capable in other things, but not in that. So there we are.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the time that you did contribute, Director Farmer. It's appreciated.
Well, I usually said a few humorous comments. That was my contribution, maybe during the half hour of our brains being fried.
Right.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like we then have the Tyler N code established for continuation of the ad hoc with Directors Gray and Vice President Howell. The next one, water efficiency. And that was something that had originated with the Resources and Infrastructure Committee. And I don't know whether it needs to be defined in a different way or if we just continue it in that that manner. And maybe what I'll get some feedback from Director Dean as far as the R&I committee is concerned, but this is very similar in the same way or discussion that we had about the Finance Committee and grants.
Yeah.
And so I guess the real identification, and it doesn't need to have a whole lot of identity into what exactly all of water efficiency is, maybe at this point. Just whether the match of R&I to that is still an appropriate one.
I think it is.
Yeah,
I'd like to keep it that way.
Okay. Any other comment by the board members?
Yeah.
Director Gray?
Yeah, I had a question about that because, you know, I was also on R&I and we worked on issues, a lot of them around water demand, efficiency, things like that. Does this have any bearing on, say, the urban water management plan update? Or is it demand or the demand management question? Or is it something that is
Well, eventually it may, I mean, there may
Yeah.
be specific questions that come to the committee. It isn't that the committee is tasked specifically with that, as much as it is that it becomes a, or I was going to use the term reservoir, talk about pun, but it becomes a point of contact for being able to review whatever questions may come up. At least that's my perspective to it, unless you agree, Ms. Dean or Director Dean.
Yes, Harry has his hand up.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Cindy. I just want to mention with regard to water efficiency, I can't think of anything that needs to be addressed more effectively and with some immediacy, considering what hasn't been happening, which is rain, in some fashion or another. As I think I alluded to this earlier, the community needs to be aware of how, like I said, how effectively they don't use water or they reuse water that comes, from the district to their tap, because that's certainly something that we need to be, that has to be in people's minds on a daily basis now. That's the way I look at it. And
thank you, Director Farman.
Yeah. And R&I has had an ad hoc committee too, looking for water efficiency methods. And so I think it's good that we keep on working on this.
Excellent. Okay, so we've addressed that in terms of the committee assignment. So the only, let's see, I'll say the only one, because we're going to discuss strategic plan focus in just a moment, but the low income rates. Now, I don't know where that stands. I don't have a lot of insight to it. Ms. Duffield, I don't know, you may be the best resource for being able to, bring things up to date.
Sure. So we did meet one time, oh gosh, many months ago. And then I was sent on an extensive research project, which I have not had the capacity to get back to. So hopefully in the next few months, I will be able to get back to that, and then I can regroup with the committee members and we can determine when our next meeting would be.
All right. So the committee members for the low income rates were Director Farmer and Vice President Howell. So is that satisfactory to you, or do we need to disband this now and then bring it back as necessary when there's specific information? Vice President Howell?
I'd recommend that we keep it alive, just so we don't forget it, and so that we'll have folks with their minds kind of wrapped around it. I'd also, even though I'm enjoying it, and since I've already been elevated to the vice presidency, and I think maybe it might be better if I bowed out of this one, and I would actually recommend Tom as a replacement. Yeah. I think Harry and Tom could actually work together on that quite well if Harry's willing.
So, Director Gray and Director
I'm
do you
fine with
feel
that.
that you...
I'm fine with that. It almost also sort of slides into the finance committee responsibility. And I'd like to know a little more specifically about what the goal is, because as I understand it, there you have low income rates for wastewater. Is this essentially investigating the possibility of having similar rates on the water side and how to fund them, essentially? Because they're general fund funded, aren't they? They can't be funded out of the
no, exactly. If something like that is to be established, then
really simple question, really.
Well, I think the issue has to do with how it's determined and assessed because of the components, and then how that would be able to be managed within the software structures of the new accounting system. So I think that it's kind of, it has to go through a few gates to be able to determine how it would be done. And then if and when determined, the amount of money that would potentially reduce would have to be met by transfers of monies from the general fund.
So it has to do with basically how it interfaces with billing. And the qualifications, I think, are PG&E.
Right, exactly.
Pipeline, whatever. But how it interfaces with billing, and then it's a fiscal impact.
Right.
Yeah.
I think if I can just chime in, I think the original board discussion that led to this, the board had expressed a desire that if it to provide assistance if possible. And so the question then is, how much is possible? And so that's really the, and I think part of the research that Ms. Duffield was eventually will get to has to do with some of that, is how much is it going to cost? Where is that money? And can we afford to? I mean, there's a desire on the part of the previous board to provide assistance, but we can't do it out of thin air. And so,
And I apologize for cutting in, but that kind of discussion can happen outside of this. And we still have a few hurdles to get over this afternoon. So if I can, I'd like to move forward. Okay, the last one is the board's strategic focus and plan. And just as a suggestion, I think that should probably be myself and Vice President Howell, because it's something that would need to move in terms of how we potentially would be pulling together strategic plan information. And I think that that's probably where it needs to be focused. And we may be able to address that a little bit more later. But if that is satisfactory to you, Vice President Howell, then I'll just make the adjustment in terms of the actual assignment to yourself and to me.
Yes, I'm willing. I was thinking of that too. Forgive me for backtracking a little bit, but we didn't get a chance to ask Director Farmer if he was willing to continue with the low income rates. So I think we kind of drafted him in there without getting his consent on that one.
I do want to make a comment. I just want to say this, that considering the circumstances that exist in our society right now, and that's not just nationwide, but even in our community here, we see what's happening with regard to what the governor is demanding, and hopefully that will change. But with regard to low income, people being on a lower income and reduced income, that's not only going to continue, it's probably going to increase the number of people who are going to be struggling. So I really feel, and I know that Ms. Duffield, she's had to deal with audit items and so many other things, and this is probably going to be a challenge when we finally get back to it. But I feel like for this community, for the people, especially in the service industries, we need to be as attentive to their needs as possible. So that's my.
And I agree. I think that there's no question about the desire to do something. It's just a matter of this particular ad hoc being involved in what the mechanics of it are and the practicality of it, and being able to then also define what the financial impact is, just so that we're all well schooled in what the cause and effect is. So is that something that you would like to continue on, President Farmer? I guess that's
hopefully I implied that.
Okay, so the low income rates will be Director Farmer and Director Gray. Okay, I believe we've addressed everything as far as the ad hoc committees are concerned. And moving on to the liaison appointments. And their assignments. Let's see, 4 of these went away with the Cambria Fire Safe Focus Group and Director Pearson, and then the North Coast that he was involved in, and then Director Rice was involved in the San Simeon CCSD or CSD, and the California Coastal Commission. So I think we do need to still have established liaisons. The only thing that I'd like to put out, and we don't have to address this immediately, but I think that we need to potentially look at this area too, in terms of verbal reports versus a written report, because I think we consume a lot of our time in board meetings with some of the reports being provided verbally. And I think we could, certainly have them submitted as written reports, unless there's something that's specifically relevant to district business, because that's the intent of having the liaison assignments, is that it puts board members in other public environments where they would potentially learn about things that could be impacts to district business, and to be able to bring that back for our attention. So the Cambria Fire Safe Focus Group, if I'm not mistaken, Director Dean, you said that you were already, or do we have 2 directors that are on that, or just the one?
I think we have two of us are already attending.
Okay.
So not in an official capacity, but we both have been attending the group.
Right, because it doesn't have a formalized board, does it?
It's an informal gathering. I'll say that. There's a list of there's a mailing list, email list, and there's people who are part of the meetings, and it varies quite a bit. I mean, Dave Pearson is continuing as coordinator, so he's the leader of the group.
Okay.
I do think it's important that CCSD have someone who's there, kind of regularly there representing CCSD. Right. William, Chief Hollingsworth is also part of the group, but he's not always there because his schedule doesn't actually permit it. But I do think we still need that liaison.
So is there a suggestion, or would one of the 2 of you be willing to take that liaison assignment?
I'd be willing to volunteer. I mean, I'd be willing to do it. I don't know what Karen would, I'd be willing to do it.
Yeah, I'd be willing to do it too, but it doesn't matter to me, whichever you want to do.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about one of these other liaison positions we can trade.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then Director Gray, if you would take the liaison assignment for the Cambria Fire Safe Focus Group. The next 2, the Cambria Forest Committee and Friends of the Fiscalini Ranch Preserve. Director Farmer, those are traditionally liaison assignments that you've held. Are they still of interest to you, and do you want to continue in those?
I think they still want me, so we'll.
I have no doubt that that's the case. Okay, thank you. Then moving on to the North Coast Advisory Council. Ms. Dean, having been on the NCAC, is this potentially the one that you were interested in?
Well, I'm still on the NCAC, so if it is appropriate for me to go ahead and do that as well, then I'm willing to be the liaison for that. But is that we could ask our council if that would be a conflict or not for me to be liaison as well as area representative.
Well, we can certainly ask Mr. Carmel, but just for point of reference, it was something that I did for a period of time, probably close to a year past the time that I had assumed a director position on the board. So personally, I don't see any conflict with it. Mr. Carmel, do you?
No, there's no conflict.
Okay, fine. As long as you have the time and availability to do that, Ms. Dean, if you'd like to do that, I'd say by all means.
I'll be there anyway.
There you go.
Convenient.
Okay. All right, then the San Simeon CSD. Is this of any particular interest to anyone? Vice President Howell?
I can do that one.
All right, thank you. Now, the California Coastal Commission, frankly, I'm not sure what that entails specifically. The one thing that I do have in mind are the board bylaws that indicated that the president should be the interface with outside organizations in terms of representing the board. So my suggestion would be that that would be a liaison activity for me, but I think it needs to be more, specifically defined also.
Yeah.
Director Gray?
Oh yeah. I think that to have it as a liaison assignment, just have a board member doing it, kind of diminishes the significance of the contact, of the level of contact you need to have. I do think, as President Stidella just said, it needs to be at the higher level. It needs to be, should be the two contacts with the Coastal Commission should be the president and the general manager, because our relationship with them is too important. It's typical of all, I think, all agencies that are in a sense superior to the or have jurisdiction over the CCSD. I think the representation, the liaison, should be at the general manager level and the presidential level.
Okay.
And not as a special liaison, just as part of the job.
No, I disagree.
All right. Well, with that being the case, then we can either eliminate this, or I can just have myself assigned as it and to redefine it in some way. Vice President Howell?
Yeah, I'm rather would prefer to have those two functions be separate. The purpose of the liaison, as I would take it, would be to attend Coastal Commission meetings as a way of communicating back and forth what's going on. Whereas speaking for the board, which I don't think is necessarily the liaison's job, should be left to the president. Yes, definitely. But I think to have someone whose job it is to attend those meetings and report back to the board, it should be as a separate responsibility. There's another reason why, is that the president's job only lasts generally for a year if we follow this custom, but the liaison job could go
could be okay.
So, and I would recommend Director Dean on that, because she's already chairman of the R&I committee, and I can't think of anything that might be more closely related to Coastal Commission concerns.
Okay.
I'm willing to do that.
Director Dean, is that all right?
But I agree that the president should be the spokesperson.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, and that potentially, you know, you and I can have a conversation about that, Director Dean, and see, you know, that we can framework that a little bit, and if necessary, bring it back to the board. Yeah, I can see that.
Just as a practical matter, maybe a little bit of money matter too. Right now, attending Coastal Commission meetings is quite
it's no big deal.
Easy.
Yeah,
but in maybe a few months, hopefully,
it could be a financial.
You're going to be going up to, you know, Eureka and San Diego. What does that entail, actually attending meetings?
And,
might be practical.
And again, we can discuss that, and if necessary, you know, that can shift. But for right now, we'll go ahead and get this liaison assignment established, and you know, it could be something in the matter of, you know, reviewing the agenda items for the Coastal Commission meetings, and if there isn't something obvious that. Ms. Dean, Director Dean.
You know, the Coastal Commission meetings are online, whether it's COVID or not.
Right.
So even if it isn't practical to travel to a specific location, the meeting can still be watched online. Because the liaison doesn't really, I don't think the liaison is really supposed to speak for the board. It is you, the president, that's supposed to speak for the board. The liaison's just supposed to attend the meeting and report back. So I think it's still possible. And besides, it gives me an excuse to go out of town anyway if the meeting's somewhere interesting. And as a
no, don't say that, because the next thing you know, it'll be on social media that you're being willing to,
No, and if I may say, ask one more thing, please.
Please.
Before we move on to the next agenda item, may I have a 5-minute break?
Yeah, we've only got 25 minutes left in the meeting time. Unless, you know, people are willing to, you know, consider extending it, you know, for some short period or something. I don't know.
It won't even take me 5 minutes. I drank too much coffee. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Let's. Okay. Would 3 minutes do?
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay. Before. Yeah. So 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Please.
All right.
Back. There she is. Okay.
Oh, Harry's not back yet.
There it is.
Yeah. There he is.
Okay.
And
Thank you, everyone.
Are we all?
All right. What we would be doing is moving to.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. We just got everything back up and running. Did we miss anything?
Oh,
no, we didn't.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. I appreciate that. I need to be aware of that. And
don't forget me.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Okay, Madam Chair, we are ready to go. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Getting back to regular business, then we are at the discussion and consideration regarding the standing committee member application and appointment. Yes, Director Farmer?
Just very quickly, I'd like to recommend that we consider perhaps having liaisons to the healthcare district. And if we don't do it now, maybe the healthcare district, and someone contacted me about maybe the school district, and I realized maybe those don't seem that.
Well, yeah, in both cases, thinking in terms of liaisons for potential impact to the district business. I mean, it'd be nice to have those kinds of things if people from those organizations wanted to come and give us reports periodically, but in terms of setting a liaison and assigning directors time to that, I don't know that there's a cause and effect in it. How do others feel?
I think this is worthy of discussion, but I think maybe a more extensive discussion than we have time for right now. Maybe.
Okay.
It sounds like. Oh, sorry.
We can always establish an additional liaison, but right now we were just addressing what was on the table. So perhaps Vice President Howell's suggestion is noteworthy, and we can take it up at a later time. Would that be satisfactory for everyone?
Yeah, that's fine. It sounds like a new agenda item, a future agenda item, basically.
Right.
Needs to be.
Yeah, needs to be, exactly.
Is that satisfactory for you, Director Farmer?
Yeah.
Okay. The item C coming up is probably going to take a little bit of discussion. And it's possible that we might be able to take care of item D rather quickly, just to be able to get that off of the regular business agenda if people are willing to drop down to that. This almost really could be something that would have been on a consent agenda, because it's just a matter that it's a review and markup of the budget policy as a result of just the maturing of the process in the budget process. And it's something that's been reviewed extensively by Ms. Duffield and by members of the budget committee. And so the markup that's been brought forward to you just reflects those adjustments or alignments of how we do business and what our practices are. Would people be willing to go ahead and set a motion to this and vote on it and go ahead and get it off the table? Ms. Duffield, you seem as though you have something you'd like to say.
Sorry, Mr. Weigel needs to introduce this item, please.
Yes, absolutely. And I just needed to see if the board was willing to to take that action, but thank you. And that being said, we'll move to item 5D, and Mr. Weigel, if you can introduce that for us, please.
Yes, President Stidel, agenda item 5D, staff is recommending that the board review the budget policy revisions recommended by the Finance Committee and consider adoption of this revised policy.
Thank you. Assuming that the directors have had an opportunity to look at their board agenda packages and familiarize themselves with it, Do I hear a motion to accept the policy, the budget policy revisions provided in agenda item 5D?
I so move.
I second.
Second. Osana, could you please do roll call vote?
You're muted.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So Vice President Howell moved to adopt the budget policy, and it was seconded by Dean. So Vice President Howell,
Aye.
do you vote? Director Karen Dean,
Aye.
Director Tom Gray,
Aye.
Director Harry Farmer,
Aye.
and President Stidel.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you for moving through that quickly.
Vice President Seidel?
Yes.
I was going to move to postpone 5E till next week. So maybe we could do that too.
Let's see, where would that put us?
If there's enough time next week.
Yeah, we would still be able to take the possible action that we needed to. GMY Gold, is that something you feel that we could actually push out to the upcoming meeting, that we could get it on the agenda and publish it as part of the agenda?
I think so, as long as I could get district council approval, just if we're able to just move that on to the next week's agenda. We're going to publish that here momentarily. So we'll just have to move that over. I don't know what that takes from a review standpoint.
Okay. Mr. Carmel, any comment?
Oh, we'd have to amend the agenda to include that item.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be by motion, does it?
Well, no, we'd have to physically, we're going to post the agenda we have now, so we would have to simply amend the agenda.
It's already on its way to being posted, so
Yeah, so
we
we'll
would have
probably
to submit it.
We'll amend that agenda probably Monday or Tuesday then.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Just very briefly, the only reason I'm asking that is I received some references from General Manager Weigold at noon today, but I need time to call them.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, are you calling to get their framework of what strategic planning represented for them, or what their feedback was on the Zoom meeting action?
It's the second. These are people who had, that they had used the Zoom meeting, and John has already reported a favorable response, but I wanted to talk to them myself. And also Mr. Weigold was going to give me some examples of other strategic plans, just so I know. I'm friendly to the prospect, but I would like time to just double check, just to be sure.
May I make a suggestion? May I make a suggestion then? Rather than having to have staff jump through hoops to push this out for a week, perhaps we could go ahead and go forward with at least defining what date we wanted to target to do this in that agenda item, and we can make revision as necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be acceptable?
Oh,
is it acceptable? Is it acceptable to folks to go ahead and address 5D in out of order? Then I could have Mr. Weigold, excuse me, 5E.
5E, yes.
That I can have GM Weigold introduce it for us.
Yeah, I would say if the decision is just to simply set the date, but not to give the go ahead to the provider yet until we've did the final blessing, which we would do next week. If that's acceptable, I'm agreeing.
And there's a conversation offline that can help support some information to you also. So
that works.
Is that acceptable to everyone? Okay. Mr. Weichel, could I ask you to introduce 5E then, please?
Yes, President Stidel. Agenda item 5E, staff is recommending the board of directors discuss and consider scheduling a date and selecting a venue to hold a special meeting to review input from the public and develop the district's strategic plan. And just as a review, what staff is asking the board to do is, this is a two-part process for the special meeting. The first part will be of the meeting will be to take public comment, specifically to develop input for a SWOT analysis. So we'll be asking the public for the district's strengths, weaknesses, and potential 3-year goals. And we propose doing that a day or two ahead of the workshop that the board will participate in. Part 2 of the special meeting, we will adjourn the special meeting after public comment session, and it'll be reconvened for an 8-hour workshop for the board. The public will be invited to participate in that. And we have the 2 potential dates for January, or January 13 and 19, that are open on the consultant.
The board participation dates, the workshop would have to happen before that.
So, I'm sorry, President Stidel.
The workshop would happen before either of those dates, in supporting these dates as being the 8-hour date for the board and staff to participate.
So when I say the workshop, just to clarify, the workshop is the group get together of the board for the retreat portion.
The retreat portion, right.
So the public comment, the special meeting would have to occur before.
Okay, you're referring to that as the public comment. Okay, and then the workshop itself is the activity of the board.
Yeah, so the workshop, the part 2,
all right,
which is with the consultant, the 2 dates are available are the 13th and the 19th.
19th, right.
Staff is recommending that the 19th to the date to the board, primarily because of the agenda review process and preparation for the month. We will be complete with the 2 meeting agendas at that point.
Okay.
And then since Monday is a holiday on the 18th of January, due to Martin Luther King birthday, we propose to have the initial part of the special meeting for public comment on Friday, the 15th.
Okay, and that is not, that staff is
correct
available on the 15th, is that correct?
No staff day off that day.
All right. So what is up for discussion and for approval at this point is just the decision of the 19th for the 8-hour meeting of the board and staff. And backing off of that to the 15th would be the date for public comment. Now, all the particulars related to how that's structured and how that will happen, we need to work through and get into place. But what the need to do here was to establish the dates and have a committed date for the workshop leader to be able to at least have as point of reference for her calendar, and for us to determine how we would lead into getting the agenda set up for the invitation for the 15th for the public. Ms. Dean, I'm so used to, I'm sorry, making reference in other environments, and it's gotten to be a habit. I apologize.
Aaron, whatever.
So Director Dean.
Okay, I heard 2 different dates. I heard the 13th and the 15th. So which one is it?
The 19th is the date.
Right.
The 15th is backing off of the 19th for the public.
Okay,
So
but
there are
you
2
also mentioned
dates.
the 13th. Is that we're doing something on
The
the
13th, the 8-hour workshop, the choice was the 13th or the 19th.
Okay.
And then backing off of either one of those dates for a couple of days for the public comment. If we were to choose the 19th, that back off would be represented as the 15th of January.
So we're not talking about doing anything on the 13th. We're talking about the 15th and the 19th.
13th, yeah.
And there is a public comment on this, maybe?
I'm good with the dates anyway.
Oh, we've got public comment on the. Oh, we have.
2 public comments.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and that's definitely going to take us way past some of the things we need to do, but we're already launched into this and I took us there, so I apologize. And so that's what we're going to have to do. Is continue this and just take it to resolution. So yes, Asana, could you please call on the public comment? And I will ask, because of the time limitations that we have, if folks would probably or possibly keep it as concise as possible. Thank you.
Okay, Laura and Crosby Schwartz, please. Unmute yourself.
Yes. Okay, this is Laura Schwartz. The thing is, I don't know if the public can do it, but I'm going to call a point of order. I've been watching this meeting, and the last 2 or 3 items, there's not been any call for public comment at all. And I think our last president made it a point to make sure that there's nobody out here in the public. So I would hope as these meetings go on, that it is noticed if there's public comment or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz, and absolutely positively correct in that regard. And that was a shortfall on my part, and I apologize, and I will commit to being much more aware of that and to be moving through things. I'm afraid that the timeline kind of drove me on it a little bit, so thank you for your input, and it's certainly taken.
Okay, and Tina Dickinson. Go ahead.
Thank you, Asana. I just have a really quick question, and that is, would it be more beneficial for the public to be allowed to speak on this after the board has attended the 8-hour session? Because what are we going to learn prior? If we have a meeting with you prior to your meeting, what will we have learned that you could share with us?
Well, the mechanism and the way that this works, Ms. Dickinson, is that what the public brings to us is the formulation of what we would be discussing within the workshop. So there's a direct correlation between what the public provides and how that's taken into the discussion relative to strategic planning. And the community would be available for being able to observe in a Zoom environment on the second meeting, and would be the sole participants and contributors in the first meeting.
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question.
Okay. Are we in a position then to be able to vote on item, or to entertain a motion for 5E for setting the date for the workshop of the 15th, and the precursor to that, the public comment, be on the 15th of January with specific details to be formulated?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the dates approved for the special meeting and the strategic planning community input and workshop.
I'll second
Thank you, Director Farmer. And Director Dean seconds that. And Sonic, can we have a roll call vote, please? Oh, I'm sorry, Vice President Howell.
Clarification though, remembering that if the intent is that we are only setting the date, we are not telling Ms. Schwartz that we're actually going to do it until we vote on it next week. That's what I'm after. And that's what I thought.
So your issue is that potentially the person that has been vetted and recommended through 3 other directors would.
It's not, again, my only, sorry for interrupting. My only reservation has to do with the fact that this person originally, when we selected this person, she had not had any experience with virtual meetings, nor did she offer that. now subsequently 9 months later, she has learned how to do this. What I want to know, and well, I have heard positive things reported to me by Mr. Weigel. I really want to talk to those people myself. These are people who may, in some cases, have used her before in her former format and can then report the degree of success she's having in the new format.
Well,
so that's my concern. You know, no.
Vice President Howell, I guess I'll suggest that I understand your concerns, and I can't answer that for you because there are 4 other board members to vote. And you may vote and not approve of it, but there are 4 other board members to vote, and I cannot, commit their vote would be.
Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I understand that. So if its intent is to give the go-ahead at this point, then I have to vote against it because I really think that I was only given these references today at noon, and I had asked for them earlier. I understand there are reasons why that couldn't happen, but I know that you and Director Pearson, I believe, have worked through this.
Well, actually, Director Farmer has also and has spoken to her.
Okay. Okay. Well, again, I'll go with the decision of the board, but that was my concern. And if you do decide to go forward, then I won't even bother making the rest. And why should I take my time? But I am concerned because we have hired somebody for a significant amount.
Vice President Howell, I'm sorry, we only have 2 minutes left, and I'm going to have to call for an extension of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
I move that the meeting.
I would like to suggest a 15-minute extension of the meeting, if that would be acceptable.
Yeah.
Do I hear a motion?
I so move.
And second?
10 seconds.
And can we vote by indication, please? Thank you.
Well, she has to.
5-0.
Unanimous, right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So who was the originator on the motion? Was it you, Vice President Howell?
No.
Okay, it was Director Farmer.
Director Farmer, yeah.
Okay, we had Director Farmer as the motion and Director Dean as the second. So Asana, could you take roll call, please?
Yes, for the 5E session, Director Farmer, how do you vote?
I'll vote aye, although I just want to make this comment. I've been one of the people that has really questioned even doing the strategic planning workshop. And so the fact that I actually was the one that supported doing this, I'm kind of looking at myself and say, well, how did this happen, Harry? But I already did make that motion. So yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Aye.
Director Dean, Director Gray,
Aye.
Vice President Howell.
In view of the fact that I haven't had the opportunity to do the research that I've asked for, I vote no on this one.
No. And President Stidel.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you.
So it is passed with 4 ayes and 1 nay, correct?
Yes.
All right.
4 ayes and 1 nay.
So coming back to item 5C. And at the being reminded by the Schwartzes, thank you very much, Ms. Schwartz. Is there any public comment on this item before we move forward?
Do we need to?
May I introduce the item before public comment?
Yes, thank you. I apologize. I'll get the rhythm of it better.
President Stidel, agenda item 5C is discussion in consideration regarding standing committee member application and appointment process. Staff is recommending that the board discuss and consider the standing committee member application and appointment process and provide direction to the staff to begin a new application process. The most impacted vacancies right now really are on the R&I committee due to the departure of Director Pearson and the election of Directors Dean and Gray to the board. So we need to address those first and foremost at this point.
Okay. So with the introduction of that, then I've moved to ask if there's any public comment.
There is none.
Seeing none, okay. So we'll move to the board considerations. I'd ask first if.
In a new application process.
Sorry?
Oh, sorry, talking to myself.
Oh, okay. There are probably a couple of things here. One is that, as a reminder, when Director Rice and I offered the current standing committee bylaws, we noted that the process for selecting the committee members at the end of this review would probably require a revision as necessary, depending on the formation of the process. The one thing that I feel is a shortfall in this that I would like to have the board consider is that with the process just being a matter of those who are on the committees determining whether or not they want to continue to serve versus the idea of having the committees be redetermined at the end of a 2-year period really does kind of preclude the opportunity for the peoples of the community to be able to participate on the committees. And even the language that's currently in here indicating that on 2.3D at the end of term of office and with request of the member and approval of the committee, the CCSD Board of Directors may reappoint that member for an additional 2-year term in increments. And that's kind of, that's a bit cumbersome in its wording, number one, because I don't think that the approval of the standing committee itself is something that's necessary for the Board of Directors to make the determination necessarily. And actually the cleaner process may be just to, it's a term of office. And at the end of that term of office, then all of those who were in that term have satisfied their job and they reestablish the committees. Certainly the people who have served previously can apply again to be able to be on those committees, but it also offers an opportunity for the public to get their chance of being able to participate on a committee. And it also provides any new director chair of the committee to be able to determine the skill sets and things of folks that he may want to consider or she may want to consider for the committee. So I just wanted to put that out there as part of something for consideration by the other members of the board and for discussion for our feedback. And I guess the only other thing that I would add to that maybe is, I don't know, Mr. Carmel, perhaps you can assist in giving some perspective to us as we work through this, considering the other special districts you work with. Do you have any feedback regarding how other special districts handle this?
It varies, but usually at the end of the term, it's over and they start the process again.
Yeah.
They open the entire process up again, to get as you said, to get the most public input and the biggest opportunity for those that to serve.
Okay, thank you. Director Dean.
Okay, so on my committee, I only have 2 people who are interested in continuing, and one that is thinking about wanting to be on it. So if we take applications for all of the standing committees, but yet we still let you know let the board know who would like to be reappointed. Would it really be necessary for those who are already serving that would like to be reappointed, to be considered to be reappointed? Would it really be necessary for them to actually fill out an application too? Because the bottom line is the entire board has to agree, I believe, with who it is we're going to have serve on these committees.
Well, I suppose the idea of how that application needs to be frameworked is up for discussion. I think that by filling out an application, that advises the board that they would like to continue in the position. So it just makes it clean across the board, because we have 3 committees and 5 members on each one. So keeping track of things can be a little tough. Plus, you may have a community member that would be interested in serving in Committee A or Committee B. And depending on what the skill set of the applicants are, perhaps, as we've experienced previously, there may be applicants who'd be willing to, serve in either condition, and there can be discussion. So I do think that there is some value in doing that.
Okay.
Director Gray?
Yeah, I would suggest a very simple rule. I think you should have each committee basically disbanded, reapplication for specifically for those committees, not for like a hopper for when you choose, all 3 committees. And as a practical matter, I think you're going to have most of the people who are serving on the committee now. There may not be very many new people coming in to apply, but I think it's really important for the idea of public outreach and of public participation to make it possible for people to apply and let them know that that this committee is being reconstituted, it's being reappointed. The people who are reapplying can obviously cite their work on the committee as a qualification for being reappointed. And we know them, we know who would be good and who wouldn't be. But I do think it's really important when there's a new board to have a new slate of committees, just on principle, and also as a matter of saying we want people who are interested to come forward, even if they haven't been on these committees before.
I just want to make sure that the people who are currently serving do have the opportunity to. We need some continuity in some of the issues that these committees have been discussing. And I just want to make sure not to shut out the people who have served on the committees that want to continue.
Right.
No term limits.
Right.
No term limit principle at all. Yeah.
Assuming that. It's just a matter of making sure that we don't shut down the opportunity for members of the community to participate. I mean, if you have a committee where all 5 of the serving members want to participate again, that's excellent, but it also has the possibility that there'd be others that were interested and have certain skill sets that the chair may feel will really help enhance the committee, and they need to be able to make that consideration.
One more question just for the chair, based on your last comment. Will the chair of the committee be making the selection and then having it approved by the board?
Well, that's something that we need to consider. When we were first establishing the committees, they were constructed by having each individual director make a recommendation for one of the participants on the committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was important initially, before we had any kind of history and didn't have any points of reference for the kind of work necessarily that the committees were going to be doing. We may be in a position now where we should discuss at least the idea of the chairperson having their recommendation to the board, not that they would choose, but that if they've got 5 positions and there are 7 applicants for it, they may feel that the mix of 5 that would be brought to a committee may be different than it currently exists. and can make that recommendation to the board and, you know, be asked questions about why that recommendation is theirs. And potentially, you know, I think there are ways to deal with that. And I think that, like many things, when you first start out, it starts being handled in one way and you end up aligning it to what the smartest practice is for the time as it matures. What's the feedback from other folks, please? Vice President Howell?
Yeah.
You're muted.
Yeah, this is an interesting problem, and I see it. I think this is probably going to require more discussion than we're able to give it here, and yet we have an immediate problem, which is a soon to occur, or actually occurring as we speak, vacancy on the R&I committee. But I'm having some difficulty here. Our bylaws that were passed, our board bylaws that are passed last year, do specify a process for filling these committees. And this was on July 16th of 2020, they were approved. So we have our bylaws, which are in exact contradiction to the committee bylaws that we're looking at in this. So my first question is a procedural one. I do also note that we are required in our own bylaws to revisit the bylaws every January, and basically our first meeting. So it looks to me like this paragraph is probably a candidate for changing at that point. If we don't do that, Mr. Carmel, it looks to me that any other procedure that we would have to suspend our rules in order to use any procedure other than what our own bylaws say. I don't see that we can just.
Gentlemen, I apologize, but we've come up against a time constraint again.
Thank you, Harry. Yeah, so I think we need to maybe extend, but I'm not sure that we can actually. This is a complicated issue, which you have all incredibly good points. And so what do we do?
But Dr. Howell was the point, because the bylaw, you know, the main bylaws, the board bylaws have one procedure.
So before we discuss this, can we make a decision about whether we're going to extend?
Oh, yeah. Well, let's.
Do I hear a motion?
I move to extend.
Minutes for another 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and second, and by affirmation vote.
Everybody.
Aye.
Well,
President Farmer?
Osana has to record the votes. It's either, are we?
It's 4-5. I don't know. President Farmer, are you voting?
Well, I guess I am.
Farmer, I'm sorry, Director Farmer, are you voting?
Hands up.
Yeah.
For aye?
It has to be 4/5. So if, yeah, okay.
And actually, Director Gray had voted aye before, so I think we're.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I apologize. So I interrupted a conversation, and Mr. Carmel, you were going to, I think, address Vice President Howell's question.
The board can always override its bylaws by majority vote.
That's the first, thank you. That was what I wanted to know. But that still leaves the question, which is, since what we're really discussing is the procedure that we wish to use, that we think should be used going forward, it might be appropriate to consider it in the context of our own bylaw modification. The only other thing is, and this is directed to President Steidel, in the presentation here, which is the committee bylaws that you and Amanda Rice dealt, that paragraph D, I'm wondering if there's not a typo there, and that it really, was it your intention to say at the end of a term of office and the request, blah, blah, and approval by the committee chair is what I'm wondering, is whether that's what you actually.
That occurred to me also, that the word chair should be put there. And the thing that seems difficult in that is that there's no way for the chair to even make that value judgment if by chance there are different applicants that would happen by opening it up. So although I understand that, and that small change might address it, but I think the larger issue to be addressed is the completion of term.
Yeah.
And to relaunch with applications.
Right.
If I may speak to that briefly, I think two things that I'm hearing. One is the idea to keep as open a field as possible. So that now bearing the other side of that is to find 15 people who are willing to volunteer a significant part of their time without pay. Well, that may be an issue. And it is truthfully, we haven't had hosts of people applying for any of these positions. So I don't know. And on the other hand, to invite the public more and more, yes. And the measure of our success would be in the number of applicants that we get. But the other thing that concerns me, and I see it, it may not, I don't know on the other two committees, but the issue of continuity. There is a certain, there is a learning curve with some of this stuff. And for example, now it's not a problem presently with the policy committee because those terms are by nature, it's just because we've had resignations. So they're already staggered. But I'm not averse to having to the proposals, but I am a little concerned about replacing an entire committee all at once. To me, I see that as, there is some value to it, but I think there's a cost, and the cost has to do with bringing people up to speed. And this is particularly the case where some of these committee members may actually be rather heavily invested in the project that they're working on. And so I think that we need to bear that in mind as we go forward in crafting a process.
And I would, and from my perspective, I would agree with what you're saying, and I understand exactly what you're saying. I think there are probably a couple of things that balance it a little bit. I mean, I would think that at any changeover point, the chair of a committee would already be, speaking to the members of that committee to get some kind of feel about a desire for continuation in the process. Because frankly, even if it were coming to the end of the process and all they had to do was say yay or nay, you would still have the possibility of losing membership. Yeah. So the only thing that's going to happen is that they just are going through an application process. So I don't see where there's a risk associated with losing a committee membership in total. I think that it more is the issue that we're dealing with right now with the R&I committee for the numbers of people who have been drawn off of it because of circumstance and not by choice, or a choice to dismiss the committee. So I appreciate what you're saying, but I just don't think it would go to that extreme. And if it did, then I think that it would be incumbent upon the chair of that committee to advise the board of that, to let them know, so that there could be some heightened participation by the board in going out and soliciting people to participate in that process and to apply. Mm-hmm. Does that sound reasonable, or?
Yeah, it sounds reasonable. I would still be happier, and this may not, as I say, this is probably not the time even to deal with it, but as we go forward, I think I'm still kind of liking the idea of staggered terms so that everybody doesn't leave all at once. That's kind of a concern. I mean, the board staggers its terms, so you never get a totally new board. By the same token, it seems reasonable to me. This is not by any means a showstopper. What I see though is we have an immediate problem, which is, should the staff take applications for the vacancies presently occurring, regardless of what process because there have to be applications. And that raises my last question, which is, when the report says to begin a new application process, does that mean to start an application process, or does it mean to start an application process different from whatever we've done in the past? I mean, I don't know what the word new means in that context. So maybe.
Right. And yeah, I did not read that to be that it would be a different application process. It would just to initiate a new cycle of application.
Yeah.
The other thing is that if we kind of look at how we handled things historically, we could back off from the end date of that 2-year period, so that the meeting before that end date or at that end date, the board would actually be making its decisions about the assignment of the board members, which, so you back it off and you say, okay, then what we would need to do is have the application period launch no later than, so you had that 2-week open period, and then, you know, maybe anything from 5 to 7 days for board members to be able to review the applications received, to put them in a position of making the decision at the date needed.
Yeah. Well, may I make a suggestion then?
Yeah.
I suggest that we go forward with the wording as it is in the pretty much as it is in the current 5C, and deal with the issue of additional terms and all that when we modify our bylaws on the first meeting in January. But that we go ahead and get the application process started based upon what is here.
Well,
Can
the difficulty in that then is that you have the terms of office that will expire before you could go through an application period to replace the person.
I get
Director Gray?
Yeah, it seems to me, given the timetable, though, we're essentially missing for Resources and Infrastructure Committee. It would take actually, you know, going through a process, you would probably not be able to reappoint new people or appoint new people until January, our first January meeting. And so their scheduled meeting is normally early January. I mean, Karen can tell me. And so I don't think there's any way, given the 2-week process and everything we have to go through for an application, there's no way to actually fill those seats until after the January meeting that we have anyway, right? So it's not really.
And what we're running up against is that the maturing of a process, and recognizing that with the election of new officers, that it can create a circumstance like this, and the timing between that process and the putting people in place for our committees. I think that's part of the hang up. I don't know that.
Well,
you know, I mean, here's one option that we can look at. We as a board can consider unanimously to be able to extend for this singular time the 2-year period of the people serving as members on these committees for another month or something, just something long enough so that we can get past this process of making these decisions and be able to support the timeline then of applications and making decisions about the committee members. And Ms. Dean, Director Dean.
I have one problem. If we extend this, I won't be able to have a January meeting because I'm losing 3 members.
Right.
I only have 2 people who wish to continue. One I thought was the third is moving out of California. Director Pearson was the chair, and he's interested in being a committee member. And I think that I'm not sure we can appoint him before the January meeting if we have to have this application process. So it's just me and 2 committee members, and that's not a quorum. So I don't know how I can have a January meeting.
Say, Director Gray?
Yeah, given that we can suspend bylaws as needed for like an emergency appointment, I could see specifically for if David Pearson wants to be on the committee so that you have a quorum, doing that now. And just for, but just until the regular process of refilling the committees, the process of reappointing goes forward. In other words, basically an interim emergency appointment. I think we could do that. I mean, I have to ask council on that. But if we take we suspend the relevant part of the bylaws just to do that, I think we could do it if it's legal.
Mr. Carmel, maybe to address that immediately.
Yeah.
Yes, you would be able to do that. You wouldn't be able to do it today because it's not agendized, but you
I
can
know we'd have to do it on next Thursday, right?
do it next Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay, Vice President Howe.
Well, I'm noticing that almost all the terms are ending on the 17th of January.
Uh-huh.
Now that is, and I don't recall, what is the application? Do we have time if the application process started now?
Actually, we would.
Well, maybe we should
by backing up the 2 week time frame, and then that's the application, and we do, and the week. So we basically need 3 weeks before the 17th.
I think we could do it then.
I think
maybe we should just do it and just shoot for the 17th. For policy committee, I've got 2. The R&I would meet before the 17th, so they would be okay.
We have no meeting this month.
No.
Oh, they don't have any. I mean, I'm talking about next month, January.
Yes.
Or I don't remember when your meeting is, and the finance committee meets when?
I think I'm not sure exactly. Well, I should address this to the chair, right?
There is a December meeting.
I don't want to have crosstalk, but
sorry, yeah. Right.
I know that R&I meets early in the month, second Monday, I think it is, and they would have one. Their problem is that they'd have one slot with no quorum, unless we had an emergency appointment. But everything else, I think the existing existing committees are still there. They have quorums until the next appointment date of the 17th. We could set the process in motion for everything else right now. I would think all the other appointments now.
Mr. Carmel, let me ask the question, please.
Yeah.
Can we make an emergency appointment under these circumstances with having lost 3 members specifically to the R&I committee?
Yes, of course. You couldn't, but you couldn't do it today. You could do it next Thursday.
Right. But what we could do today is go ahead and launch the process and then back it up at the next meeting by being able to make that emergency appointment so that it would address Ms. Dean's need, Director Dean's need.
President Stidel, quick point of order, another extension of the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I know that I'm pushing the envelope here, asking for this, especially in the first meeting that I'm conducting. But I think we're really close to being able to move this forward, and so I would ask for another 10 minutes.
I so move.
Okay.
Second, and by affirmation.
Put your hands up.
Thank you. So that's a 5-0.
5-0.
So it would sound that we would have an ability at the next meeting to make an emergency appointment for the R&I committee, and that would resolve that issue. Then to address the committee memberships overall, that we could go ahead and launch the process and go ahead and provide direction to launch the process for that right away.
Yeah.
And the only outstanding question to resolve for ourselves is whether we're going to be looking at it with the completion of the term of office being finite for committee members and looking for full application.
I think we got it.
President Stidel?
Yeah, Director Farmer?
Yeah, I just want to mention that a member of the public has had their hand up for about 10 minutes. And since we've extended the meeting, perhaps you might want to acknowledge them. Well,
I think I'd like to have the committee complete their discussion. We opened it with public comment, and I'd like to have the committee continue since we've had to extend several times.
Okay.
And we're very close to being able to represent something as a committee or as the board. Sorry. Okay, Vice President Howell.
So is it appropriate then to make a motion here that we instruct staff to commence the application process as described in the committee bylaw in 5C? Is that an appropriate?
Right, and the only thing that we need to do is make the definition that the application process is for all positions on all boards.
Yeah.
I could.
And Director Gray?
Yeah, I could suggest an easy way. I like maybe an easy way to do that. There's wording in section 2.3c under the bylaws. Says such to fill an opening on the committee resulting from the expiration of regular term of office with no request for reappointment. I think we need to delete the terms with no request for reappointment because that's implies that it's automatic if they want to get reappointed. We can just delete that language, then it becomes it's open to it's fully open basically.
Yeah.
And I think that takes care of that issue.
Okay.
All right.
So what it would be then is establishing an agenda item for the next meeting for an emergency appointment for the R&I committee to establish a quorum for their board. And in action of this meeting that we would be directing staff to, well, first, that we are making a board decision to revise the 2.3.c committee members section to remove the wording with no request for reappointment. And that with that in effect, we would then direct staff to launch the process as described for filling the positions of all members for the 3 committees. Okay. Does that pretty much cover the bases? Okay.
I so move.
Okay.
So who was that?
All right. Are people comfortable just doing it on
second here?
Or do you need to have me go through it again? Okay.
It's on tape.
Okay, it's on tape. Okay.
President Steidel, one point of clarification. So we're gonna, the staff direction to staff is to advertise for all positions on all committees, regardless of whether the expiration term. There is one person, for example, on the policy committee whose term expires February 22.
Right. Now here's a potential single more caveat, and that is if we're taking this action, then that would infer that if there are positions filled during the 2-year period because someone leaves, if we would do it in the same concept of the board where you just serve through the balance of the term, and then that way everybody goes out at the same time and we don't have the messiness of, well, this one is this, and keeping track of it in the staff time associated with all of that. And it's probably reasonable to do that at least. I'd appreciate a little bit of conversation as we have 4 minutes left. Yeah. But, you know, considering that basically at the end of the term defined for the 2 years for the committees as a whole, that everyone exits. Vice President Howell? Oh, you just muted.
There we are. Yeah, I can see that, but I don't think we need to do that right now. I think the advertisement can simply say for open positions, and we can deal with this problem, because this is where and then this issue, what we're talking about now, we can deal with when we deal with modifying our bylaws in January.
Okay, all right.
We can really work it through.
All right, excellent. Okay, all right. So immediate assignment for R&I. The resolution for, or not resolution, but the revision of the committee members 2, 3C for elimination of with no request for reappointment, and then to direct staff to go ahead with the process as defined for requesting or soliciting applications for committee membership. Okay, and there was a motion, but there was a second. Is there a second, or do you have a question still, Director Dean?
So we were trying to avoid making the general manager and Asana amend the next agenda packet, but we do have to do that in order to do an emergency appointment. Don't we have to amend the agenda?
Yes, and that would be part of, that's another item that Vice President Howell and Director Whitegold and myself will discuss to go ahead and get that on the agenda, but thank you for also highlighting it.
Okay.
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 We have a motion, I think, don't we? Yeah.
I think we do, and we have a second.
I seconded Tom's motion.
Okay.
Now, I understand that Ms. Dickinson, before we take a vote, but Ms. Dickinson had a point, but we had taken public comment at the beginning of the agenda item. So I'm going to go ahead and move the board to do the roll call vote. Asana, would you please take the vote?
Yes. Was this also still part of 5C? Is that correct?
This is 5C.
5C. Okay. All right. And so all the revisions were is a separate thing. Okay. So for
the 3 items that I had annotated.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the motion was made by Director Gray.
Yes.
And seconded by Director Dean, if I remember correctly.
Director I.
Director Dean, yes.
Yes.
Okay. And Director Farmer.
Oh, well.
We haven't asked for a vote yet.
We haven't started the vote yet. Director Gray.
Okay.
Director Gray stated the motion. Director Dean
Right.
seconded the motion. So now we need the roll call, please.
Okay. So Director Gray.
Yes.
Director Dean.
Yes. Yes.
Director Farmer.
Yes.
Vice President Howell.
Yes.
And President Steidel.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if that's the case, we are right up against our closure time, unless someone wants to give it a couple of minutes, just so that there's anything else anyone has to say. Otherwise, we will adjourn the meeting.
Future agenda, we need to do that.
Yeah.
Can we, I move that we continue for 3 more minutes.
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, just state it as a future agenda
yeah.
item. I get you. Okay, fine, as formalized. All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Having done that, may I go ahead and make a motion on a couple of things on this?
On a future agenda items?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and this is actually in the form of a motion. I'd like to move that in the first meeting in January, we discuss and consider the name of the what is now referred to as the SWS. Yeah. So I move that we do that on the first.
I'm sorry, the
First meeting. Okay, I'll restate it. I move that on the first meeting in January, we discuss and consider the name of the facility presently known as the SWF.
May I suggest that we take it beyond the first meeting because of the amount of work content that's going to sit in the first meeting, and I think that there'll probably be a lot of discussion on that, certainly as a future agenda item, but I think maybe the first meeting in January may be kind of overly aggressive.
I get your point, yeah. Okay, the second meeting in January. I amend my motion.
Okay, and was there an additional future agenda item?
Okay, for the first meeting in February, I move to discuss and consider reconstituting the ad hoc committee for working on the CDP.
Okay. And what I was going back to was
standard terms. Oh, okay.
what is there another agenda item that you wanted to have?
I'm sorry, that's all the ones that I had.
Okay.
I mean, it is true that we do have to, on our first meeting, I guess we have to discuss the bylaws, but that's a given.
Right. Okay.
You need a second on these motions?
If we're going to vote on them, yeah.
Yes, we do, please.
I'll second it.
Okay. So those are two agenda items for consideration for future agenda. One that is the second meeting of January, and then the first meeting of February on reconstituting the CDP committee. Okay, and Osana, could you take roll call, please?
Yes. Vice President Howell moves to discuss these two agenda items, one on the second meeting in January and one on the first meeting of February. And so, Vice President Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
And
I have a question though.
Well, we're going to be up against time again, folks.
Yeah, I know. But yeah,
in fact, I think we're already over time, aren't we?
Yeah. We're over. I abstained because, but I'll abstain.
Here, we need to resolve.
It doesn't matter anyway.
That we can even be doing anything because we've gone past time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
and so Director Dean?
Yes.
You second. And Director Gray?
Abstain.
Director Farmer?
Yes.
And President Steidel?
Yes. Okay. So, Mr. Carmel, I need to ask you, do we need to extend the time and retake that vote because we went past our extension?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I won't take up your time by explaining my abstention.
That's all right.
I want to sincerely, thank everyone for the extraordinary amount of work we had to go through this evening. And I think we had an opportunity for conversation and discussion that I think was really valuable. And there was a lot of give and take. And I think it was fruitful for the things we discussed. And so thank you. And unless anyone has any objection, I'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting.
Okay. Well, Thank you, President
And-
Slidell.
and Mr. Carmel, you're going like this because you have an objection, or you so bye-bye. Okay, fine. Thank you again, everyone, and look forward to seeing you in another week.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you, Asana. I know that you had
yes.
a yeoman's job today. It's appreciated.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.